Chapter 1540. The crocodile scissors in Yi Chun's hand instantly cracked and turned into pieces. A quasi-Dao artifact had been destroyed by the artifact spirit. Yi Chun and the Zhou under him were pushed a few hundred meters away by the Dharma power. For a time men and horses were thrown off their feet. Many of the bandits were thrown into chaos. Everyone was like a withered leaf fluttering in the wind. The powerful shockwave struck them and they felt extremely uncomfortable. It was as if their chest had been hit by a giant hammer. Those with lower cultivation levels even had their protective magical artifacts shattered. They instantly spat out a mouthful of blood and the golden core cultivators fainted. All golden core cultivators step back. Nascent soul cultivators, come with me. Yi Chun couldn't accept the defeat. He was too arrogant and didn't understand the concept of taking a step back. He waved his arms and the blood-red flag behind him exploded with a terrifying wave of energy. It soared into the sky and charged towards Xianxia. Those large banners suddenly swayed, sweeping through the sky. Everywhere they passed, spatial cracks were everywhere, winding in the void like a spider web. It was a long flag that fluttered in the wind. The pole of the flag was like the sharpest spear and the surface of the flag imitated the swaying of a crocodile tail. It even imitated Dharma laws. If a golden core cultivator was affected, his body and divine soul would be instantly destroyed. Even nascent soul cultivators wouldn't be able to protect themselves if they were pierced by the pole. Kill. Let them know that the bandit family isn't just for show. So what if he's a nascent soul heavenly lord? Let's attack him as a group. Even if we are tired, we must tire him to death. We've dominated the ruins of deity and even dared to attack the 9 guards of the emperor's palace. We've killed countless nobles. Why should we be afraid of him? At the same time, more than a dozen nascent soul stage bandits and nascent soul stage bandits all lunged at Xianxia crazily. They had all been through killing and had been tempered by war. Although they were cruel and bloody, they had their own principles. For example, to never be afraid of battle, to regard the glory of the great bandits as more important than their own lives. For example, to unite as one and trust their backs to their comrades. For example, to seek revenge at all cost. Even if they were to lose 1,000 men, they would still injure the enemy by 800. These rules were very different from those of cultivators who came from sects or clans. They didn't have blood ties or inheritances, so they had to engrave these rules and ideals into their bones. Otherwise, there would be no unity to speak of. At this moment, they'd faintly noticed that the outcome of their battle with Xianxia pointed towards disaster. However, none of them retreated and they were brave and domineering to the extreme. More than a dozen nascent soul heavenly lords attacking at the same time was a terrifying scene. For a time, the most common elemental laws, the mutant laws, and even the laws of various demonic beasts and vicious birds all appeared, intertwining with each other like a giant net that covered the sky and covered the earth as it flooded towards Xianxia. Open. Xianxia pressed his fingers together and waved as he utilized the energy of the laws. The blade of the laws of gung metal swept out like a waterfall of the Milky Way, and it seemed to be capable of slicing through the chaos and dividing yin and yang. It was capable of destroying everything and was sharp to the extreme. Tila. Tila. The giant net formed by the laws of a dozen nascent soul heavenly lords was broken by Xianxia's blade of the laws of gung metal. Little girl, don't look. I'm going to kill these invaders next. Xianxia took a step forward and revealed a kind smile as he reminded little Luo Fu in a gentle voice, and then his gaze turned cold as he pointed forward. Bang! The head of a nascent soul bandit exploded. Even his nascent soul didn't manage to escape and was instantly crushed into powder by the laws of gung metal. His headless body fell from the sky with a rain of blood. Tila. Then Xianxia waved his fingers. The laws of Kunping created a crack with a radius of 1,000 feet, which spread out in the shape of a fan and could cut through everything. Tila. The bodies of 2 nascent soul heavenly lords cracked and their inch-sized nascent souls floated out, screaming. They were then killed by Xianxia. At this moment the 9 blood-red banners shot out explosively. The sharp flagpoles and spears pierced towards Xianxia Dong. The smell of blood was extremely thick, and the banner that was completely condensed from the essence blood of an expert was extremely tough. It was like a red snake that coiled around, covering the sky and covering the sun as it tried to bind Xianxia. Break. Xianxia threw another punch. He didn't use any divine powers or laws. He fought with his body. This was the boldness of the strong. The 9 blood-red banners, which were originally extremely tough and durable, were torn to shreds by the fist energy like paper. The flagpole, which was made of an unknown type of precious metal, was also tragically snapped like a hemp pole. After all, this was the fist energy of a transcendent divine physique, which could even tear space apart. How can this kid's punch be so terrifying? Young master, let's retreat. It's never too late to take revenge. The rest of the nascent soul heavenly lords were shocked and wanted to retreat. The scene of Jiang Tian using his physical body to destroy 9 quasi-true treasure flags was too shocking. It made it impossible for them to estimate Jiang Tian's strength. I told you to retreat. Retreat. Why did you have to fight with him? Great, we're all dead now. Ying Long said angrily. I came here secretly to do the archaeology and finished it. Why did you have to come here and rob me? I can't accept this. The moment the 9 crimson flags were destroyed by Jiang Tian, Yi Chun was seriously affected. He felt something in his throat and almost spurted out blood, but he still wanted to kill Jiang Tian. His eyes were full of viciousness. You can't accept this? You won't be able to accept this after I kill you. He saw that Jiang Tian had changed from defense to offense. He stepped on the air and moved 10 miles in a blink. Whoosh! His black hair fluttered in the wind. He clenched his right hand and a peerless thunder blade appeared. There were countless talisman arrays on it. The thunder art was Yang and was also the bane of monster cultivators. It could beat them back to their original form and even make them return to their ancestral form. Could disperse their dharma power and kill them easily. Plang. Jiang Tian's moves were simple and violent, as if he was going to split Mount Hua. He raised his purple lightning thunder blade high up in the air and slashed down like a heavenly river. Part of Jiang Tian's thunder laws came from the bloodline of the divine beast Thunder Centipede, while the other part was formed from the Taoyue's return to origin thunder tribulations. It contained a massive amount of nascent soul thunder tribulations, which was extremely terrifying and powerful. Its destructive power was unparalleled. Jiang Tian controlled the Dharma laws and attacked very quickly. All his attacks were as easy and natural as if they were at his fingertips. Protect the young master. Kill. The great bandits of the Yi family were loyal and fearless of death. 5 nascent soul stage cultivators shot into the sky at the same time, and they even took the initiative to stop Jiang Tian's guard Yi Chun. Rumble. They didn't hesitate to detonate their nascent souls and create an earth-shattering wave of essence chi to attack the purple thunder blade. This was an incomparably tragic scene. 5 nascent souls exploded in a row, which was comparable to at least 10 large nuclear weapons. The sky was shaking, the sun and the moon were upside down, and the world was in chaos. Space cracks were everywhere and everything within 100 miles was shaking. Many beasts were trembling and crouching on the ground. Those nearby even exploded. If it weren't for Jiang Tian activating a barrier to protect the Heavenly Village's villagers during the battle, and Long Xingnan also activating the Emperor Nine Dragons Law to form a dragon shield, the Heavenly Village's villagers would have been turned into dust immediately. No. Yi Chun roared. His vertical pupils suddenly shrank to the size of a needle tip and tears of blood flowed down his face. He gritted his teeth and regretted it to the extreme. He didn't expect that his hesitation would kill 5 of his close comrades and loyal followers. That was a great loss. Chapter 1541. There were only about 20 nascent soul cultivators in the Yi clan. Now he had lost 5 of them. Moreover, these brothers had fought with him in the past. They were as close as real brothers. Now that they had died, how could he not feel pain? However, even if their nascent souls self-destructed, they only managed to tear a crack on Jiang Tian's purple lightning saber and stop it from slashing down for a moment. The next moment, with a clang, the purple lightning saber tore through the self-destructing nascent souls and slashed down at Yi Chun. Big brother. Run. Young master, run. Ying Long and the remaining nascent souls protected Yi Chun and ran. They had already realized that Jiang Tian's strength was enough to crush them. The other Golden Core cultivators and bandits were also scared out of their wits and they all ran away. They hated that their parents had not given birth to them with 2 more legs. You want to run? Can you guys run? Jiang Tian sneered and pointed at Yi Chun's back. The sea-calming ice god's laws were instantly executed. At this time, the sea-calming ice god's laws had completely absorbed and refined the Xianming cold spring, becoming a nomological true seal. It was easy to execute and its power was more than 10 times the original. Crack. As Zhang Tian pointed in the air, the space within 100 meters around Yi Chun suddenly froze and turned into an iron plate. Yi Chun, who was in the middle of it, found it difficult to even move his fingers, let alone escape. He was like a specimen in amber, completely still. However, his consciousness was still there. He screamed in his heart, "This is the most powerful spatial law. Heavens! This person's physical body, divine sense and laws are all extremely powerful. Moreover, there is more than one law. How can there be such a freak and monster in the world?" At this moment his heart was filled with deep fear and regret. If he had known that this person was so strong, he would not have offended him. He should not have come to this place. At this moment, whoosh! Traversing 1,000 mountains, Ying Long let out a roar, and his entire being transformed into a huge Dharma form of pangolin. The golden scales all over his body vibrated and then closed tightly. His body spun rapidly, and his sharp head drilled into the fixed space like a diamond drill. His claws danced wildly like heavenly knives, tearing out pieces of space fragments. This kid is amazing. Zhang Tian's heart moved slightly, but he did not stop him. The sea-calming ice god's forbidden domain that he had just used was only 1/10 of his strength. The area was very small and the laws he had released were not solid enough. However, this was the first time someone had been able to break through his sea-calming ice god's spatial laws. Moreover, this brat was at the nascent soul realm. It seemed that he had the innate bloodline ability of the pangolin, which was terrifyingly powerful. No wonder he was able to enter and exit the imperial mausoleum of the ruins of immortality, which was heavily guarded and filled with countless forbidden formations. He really did have some skill. After a full 3 seconds, Ying Long finally opened up a passage in the frozen space and dragged Yi Chun out. Why didn't he do anything? At this moment he also felt very strange because 3 seconds was not short for cultivators. With Zhang Tian's strength, it was enough to kill him 10 times. However, in a hurry, his life was in danger and he didn't have time to think carefully. He went into the mountain with a swoosh and disappeared in a blink. "Master, we can't let these people go easily, or we'll be releasing a tiger back to the mountain," Ghost Wolf said to Zhang Tian with his immortal will. "Can he run away?" Zhang Tian smiled contemptuously. Back then, when he was deep in the magma on Earth, the Kunping golden core had just been condensed and it could cross the endless magma crust and return. Ying Long's pangolin bloodline was indeed powerful and the laws he controlled were also terrifying, but compared with the Kunpeng's laws that could destroy 3,000 worlds, he was just a mouse that was not worth mentioning at all. Ghost Wolf hurriedly shut his mouth. His surname is also Ying? In the ancient cultivation world, the surname Ying was said to be derived from Ying Long, which was the earth of the 5 elements. So, pangolin, earth-drilling mouse and other demonic cultivators like to use this surname to make themselves look good. However, Ying Ziyu's surname was said to be given by Emperor Zhongli himself. However, Zhang Tian's heart slightly moved. Could this kid be Ying Ziyu's descendant or of the same race? Originally, Zhang Tian wanted to kill this guy directly, but thinking of this he had to be merciful. Besides, whether it was Ying Long or Yi Chun, these big bandits were actually subverters and rebels of the world order of the ruins of immortality. Although they were reckless and cruel, they belonged to a group of forces that could be united, used and transformed. Thinking of this, the 30-foot divine disc suddenly bloomed behind Zhang Tian and the Kunpeng's laws of speed suddenly lit up and were released. I'll catch. I'll catch. I'll drill. I'll drill. Pin. 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 At this time, in the depths of the earth thousands of miles away, Ying Long was quickly waving his claws and turning his body, activating the earth escape technique and the earth opening technique. The moment the endless rocks and soil felt the earth opening technique, they separated like flowing water and even like air. His speed was terrifying. Like a golden streamer, he quickly shuttled through the ground and traveled hundreds of miles in an instant. He shouldn't be able to catch up with me. Ying Long was exhausted after unleashing the power of laws for such a long time. His nascent soul was burned to the point that it almost cracked. The consumption was extremely serious and he was panting heavily. At this time he had run thousands of miles away and felt a little safer. After he breathed a sigh of relief, he couldn't help but curse angrily. "Damn you, Yi Chun. I came here to do archaeology and historical research. I was free and elegant. Why did you have to follow me and make such a big fuss and offend a peak stage nascent soul realm master?" If it weren't for you, I would have gotten those precious relics. Yi Chun, who was tied to his back with primordial qi and laws, cried silently and gritted his teeth. He didn't say a word, grieving for his dead brothers. Okay, don't cry. Ying Long couldn't bear it and comforted him. It's not your fault. That punk is so ferocious. He will probably attack us the moment he sees us. Fuck, the heavenly village is such a poor and remote place. It has never been able to cultivate. How did such an expert appear? It's too sinister. When we return and your father asks, we will speak in unison. We will say that we encountered a divine general from the Ruins Emperor's palace and fought with them. Your father hates the Ruins Emperor's royal family the most. I believe he won't punish us. As for those who died, it's useless even if you cry. I might as well dig a few more tombs and give them some compensation. Yi Chun remained silent for a long time. Suddenly he gritted his teeth and shouted. No. I want revenge. My brothers can't die unjustly. I'll tell my father the truth. Even if he kills me, I don't care at all. However, I request my father to head to the lower realm and kill that cultivator from the heavenly village. Avenge them. Chapter 1542. Revenge? Do you think you still have a chance? Right at this moment, a bright streak of light suddenly shot out from the ground in front of him. It was as fast as a bolt of lightning. Fuck, this guy is here. Ying Long was shocked and wanted to dodge, but it was too late. The flowing light was like a peerless heavenly blade, easily cutting through the thick soil and mountain rocks. It turned into a Kuan Ping godly spirit with a human head and a bird body. Its steel-like claws suddenly grabbed Ying Long and Yi Chun like an eagle grabbing a chick. Break. Break. Ying Long struggled crazily and used all kinds of secret space arts, trying to tear the giant claws and escape. But it was not necessary at all. He only felt the ground rumble and the soil spread like water waves. In an instant, his eyes lit up and he had returned to the sky above the heavenly village. Clang, clang. Ying Long and Yi Chun were heavily smashed to the ground, smashing out two huge craters. They were dizzy from the fall. Then a shackle formed by the ice god's law was placed on them and they were firmly imprisoned, unable to move at all. You still want to run? How fast do you think you can run? Jiang Tian stepped on the air and flew over. His long black hair fluttered in the wind and his clothes fluttered as he looked down at the two of them mockingly. Kill me if you have the guts. Yi Chun stiffened his neck and gnashed his teeth. He looked like a bandit as he threatened fiercely. The Yi family of the Great Ko is not to be trifled with. If there is a need for revenge, I will kill all the savages in the heavenly village and even the entire Thousand Mountains range. Smack. Jiang Tian slapped him in the face, making his nose bleed, and he flew a few hundred meters away like a wheel. Is the Yi family of the Great Ko so great? They are just a few stinky crocodiles who rob people. How dare they challenge me? What's different about you? I can still beat you. Jiang Tian rubbed his palms and mocked. It's different. You're just thick-skinned. Your skin is rough and your flesh is thick like the corner of a city wall. It hurts my palms. You. Yi Chun clenched his teeth, only to find that his teeth had fallen out. He was enraged to the extreme. His vertical pupils glared at Jiang Tian with hatred. In any case, he was still a member of the Great Ko clan. Who dared to humiliate him like this? Still not submitting? I'll kill you. The divine disc behind Jiang Tian's back flashed, and the vermilion bird True Flame burst out, wanting to burn him to ashes. Wait. We're people with backing. Ying Long stopped him and snorted coldly. Backstage. Jiang Tian stabilized the vermilion bird primordial fire laws. Balls of flames were firmly fixed less than 3 meters away from Yi Chun, humming with interest. Kid, you're really strong. You've killed quite a few of our nascent soul brothers. You have the guts to even provoke the Great Ko clan. Ying Long knelt on the ground, but he still straightened his neck and said proudly, however, no matter how strong you are, can you be stronger than Kong Teichu? No matter how fierce you are, can you be fiercer than him? Kong Teichu, go out and find out what kind of person he is. He even killed the 3 guards of the ruins of immortality. Even Prince Chun Yu was killed. Even Grand Chancellor Yan Hua didn't dare to fight him and ran away with his tail between his legs. 2 days ago he even killed the divine Emperor Xianxia in this world. He's an overlord of a generation. May I ask if you're afraid of him? Kong Teichu is indeed very strong, but what does that have to do with you? Jiang Tian was stunned. He didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Don't you know that Kong Teichu is my big brother? We're sworn brothers. We're so close that we wear the same pants. Yinglong did not know what half a dime meant, but he could roughly understand. His face was full of arrogance and pride. He was so arrogant that there was no end to it. We even drank together last night. He values my research results about the ancient Dao dynasty very much. He even called me his good brother. He anxiously roared with a pale face. To tell you the truth, it was he who personally instructed me to come here to conduct an archaeological excavation. Do you want to go against him? He's the emperor of this world now. At this moment Luo Shou, Luo Xin and the others looked at each other and showed some fear. Luo Shou frowned and said, if Kong Teichu really asked him to excavate perfected cultivator Zhao's tomb for archaeological research, we can't be too stubborn. After all, it's also very important to uncover the truth of history. Perfected cultivator Zhao's spirit in heaven will also understand. Jiang Tian was overjoyed. This kid was also a funny person. He actually bragged that he knew him. Why didn't he know him? He even said that he asked him to excavate the tomb. How shameless. Next to him Long Xingnan and Bai Muxia also covered their mouths and laughed. They only thought that this Yinglong was too funny. What are you laughing at? My brother Kong Teichu is coming. Can you stop him? Seeing their strange expressions, Yinglong was enraged. Then he softened his tone and said with disdain, brother, a wise man submits to circumstances. You're definitely no match for Kong Teichu. He'll kill you with one finger. Besides, we didn't cause any losses. Instead, many of my brothers were killed by you. Don't go too far. Let us go and treat us with good wine and meat. I'll plead for you in front of my brother Tai Chu. Bullshit. Keep bragging. Zhang Qingyang snickered and flew forward, kicking him in the chest. Yinglong rolled on the ground and said fiercely, little bastard, you're just a golden core cultivator. How dare you hit your nascent soul grandpa? If my brother Kong Teichu comes, shut up. Zhang Qingyang interrupted him ruthlessly and pointed at Jiang Tian. You're blind. The Tai Chu Divine Lord is right in front of you, but you don't know him. Do you want to die? Jie. Yichun looked at Jiang Tian in disbelief. Then the shock on his face gradually turned into extreme admiration. He said loudly, you're the Tai Chu Divine Lord. You are my idol. By then Jiang Tian's name had almost spread across the entire ruins of deity. Not only were the descendants of the ruins emperor shocked, but he was also a well-known figure. In the Great Ko clan it was like thunder to the ears. Who didn't know about it? However, unlike the ruins of deity, most people in the Deku family regarded Kong Teichu as their idol and comrade. In their eyes, Jiang Taichu was a great bandit as well, and he was even ferocious and overbearing, not inferior to them in the slightest. It's really Kong Teichu. Yinglong was also dumbfounded and couldn't believe it. It couldn't be such a coincidence. He had robbed countless tombs of perfected cultivators, but today he had run into Kong Teichu. However, on second thought, there was only one nascent soul cultivator in this world, Sword Venerable Aotian. Why would a peerless heavenly lord suddenly appear? Besides, this person controlled a lot of laws, which was the same as the rumor that Kong Teichu was only at the nascent soul level, but he could control many laws and fight with soul formation cultivators. It was very likely. I'm Long Xingnan, the saintess of the dragon-rearing sect in the Hylon world and the disciple of the Tai Chu Divine Lord. Greetings, fellow Daoist. Long Xingnan took a step forward and executed the laws of the 9 dragons. True dragons of laws surrounded her body and her aura was earth-shattering. Yinglong was so frightened that his face trembled. I'm Sword Venerable Aotian, the realm master of Penglai world, a small cultivator under the Tai Chu Divine Lord. Sword Venerable Aotian also took a step forward and executed the laws of sword energy. Peerless swords of laws rushed into the sky as if they were going to break the sky. In the end, I'm Gei Lang, the captain of the Dark Crow Guards in the ruins of deity. I'm now under the command of the Tai Chu Divine Lord. Gei Lang also took a step forward and waved his air-piercing blade, easily displaying the laws of space. Do you still not believe me? Get down on your knees and surrender. Yinglong had been chased by Gei Lang before. Even though he was far away, he could still feel his energy and laws. Then he no longer had any doubts. The young man in front of him was the famous Kong Teichu. Damn, what a disgrace. It's really Kong Teichu. For a moment he was so embarrassed that he wanted to hide in a hole and disappear in front of everyone. He had bragged that he was Qin Haodong's good brother and that he had gotten his permission to drink with him. He had never thought that Qin Haodong would be right in front of him. Oh God! Everyone in the heavenly village couldn't believe it either. They had never thought that they would be able to eat and drink with Kong Teichu. When I first saw him, I only thought he looked ordinary, but his energy was extraordinary. When his identity was revealed, he was indeed extraordinary. Luo Shou stroked his goatee and trembled with excitement. He's actually the great hero Kong Teichu, the Kong Teichu who avenged perfected Lord Zhao. Luo Xin and the other young hunters couldn't believe it. Their eyes were filled with worship as if they were believers who had seen a god. Uncle Jiang is a great hero. The great hero who defeated the divine general and divine emperor of the ruins of immortality. The great hero who avenged perfected Lord Zhao. Luo Fu and the children cheered excitedly and jumped up and down. However, compared to shame, Ying Long's heart was filled with fear. Jiang Taichu was a famous peerless fiend who could easily annihilate clans, sects, armies and everything. Whether it was the 9 guards of the Ruins Emperor or the 100 Moon Academy's Chancellor, they were all wiped out when they met Kong Teichu. Even Divine Emperor Hanshi was killed by him. But today he had offended him time and time again and had spoken rudely to him. As a divine lord of the divinity transformation stage, how could he allow others to blaspheme him so easily? He would definitely kill Yi Chun and himself to protect his peerless dignity. Thinking of this, he couldn't help but tremble, and the scales all over his body made a clanging sound. He said with a sobbing voice, "Grand Primordium Divine Lord, I didn't mean to offend you today. I'm really here for archaeological research. Please spare me this once. Grand Primordium Divine Lord, if you want to punish me, kill me." Yi Chun straightened his body and said fearlessly, "Ying Long is indeed an expert. Ying Long is indeed an archaeologist. He only excavates tombs but he never kills people. I'm the one who caused all of this. You sure aren't afraid of death?" Jiang Tian's expression was cold as he nodded in his heart. In fact, the strong were respected. It was common for powerful cultivators to bully the weak and kill others for their treasures. Be it Yi Chun or Ying Long, they were not bad in nature despite having their flaws. At the very least, Yi Chun was very loyal. "I'm afraid." Yi Chun trembled, but he still said loudly with tears in his eyes, "But I can't harm my brother. But I can't harm my brother. I will take responsibility for my own actions." "You saw it too. Ying Long did not kill you from the beginning to the end. I believe that with Grand Primordium Divine Lord's magnanimity, you will definitely not make things difficult for him. All right. You want to be a hero? I'll grant you your wish." Jiang Tian waved his hand and condensed the gung metal nomological laws into a saber before slashing down. Chapter 1543. Ying Long, I'll take my leave first. Yi Chun had a look of despair as he closed his eyes and shouted with tears streaming down his face, "In my next life, let's fight the universe again and kill the Ruins Emperor together." "Fuck, you are still bragging." Ying Long had a sorrowful expression as he sighed regretfully. "In your next life, don't be so rash. Kill whoever you want. Once you encounter an expert, it's very easy to die." Everyone thought that Jiang Tian would kill Yi Chun with a single strike. But to their surprise, with 2 crisp cracking sounds, the law shackles on Yi Chun and Ying Long's bodies cracked and disappeared. "Senior Grand Primordium, why you won't kill me?" Yi Chun was dumbfounded and filled with disbelief. Kong Teichu might be infamous for fighting in the universe, but I'm not someone who kills the innocent." Jiang Tian had a calm expression as he said unhurriedly, "You have done well in resisting the Ruins Emperor. Just based on that, I'll give you a chance. Grand Primordium Divine Lord is indeed a divine lord. You are so magnanimous." Ying Long was overjoyed as he pulled Yi Chun to Jiang Tian. They bowed respectfully and said in unison, "Divine Lord, this life of yours is yours. From now on, I'm willing to serve under Senior Grand Primordium and be at your beck and call. No one will dare disobey your orders. To tell you the truth, I want to destroy the Ruins Emperor and wipe out all evil. With the war about to begin, it's indeed time to use people." Jiang Tian said leisurely, "However, my team is a revolutionary army. But my troop is a revolutionary troop. It is a troop that fights to reclaim our homeland and to protect the common people. We have discipline and rules. Not just any bandit can join us. I'd rather go without than have something substandard." If you can't abide by my rules, it's best you go your separate ways. As long as Senior Grand Primordium is willing to take us in and lead us to conquer the ruins of immortality, we will abide by the rules no matter how strict they are. We won't dare violate them. The two said without hesitation. All right, get up. Jiang Tian agreed and said leisurely, Senior Grand Primordial Divine Lord Zhao Yong fought against his homeland. True Monarch Zhao is a predecessor who fought to protect his homeland. You are not allowed to touch his tomb. Understood. After Ying Long and Yi Chun got up, they said in an orderly manner, My lord, where should we attack next? Our great Ko's Yi clan has long been impatient to follow Senior Tai Chu into the battlefield. Yi Chun said impatiently. The Deku family had been in conflict with the Ruins Emperor's lineage for many years. Both sides had suffered casualties and the grudge ran deep. Yi Chun was eager to seek revenge. I haven't prepared enough. I haven't reached the level where I can compete with a peak-stage Divine Transformation Realm warrior. I have to break through to the nascent Soul Realm as soon as possible. Jiang Tian said indifferently, Now we have a rough idea of the wood-type material. It's the pearl grass tree from the Steel Forest Forbidden area. But it's still a water-type material? Yi Chun immediately patted his chest and said passionately, Don't worry about it. My great Ko family has burned, killed and plundered for thousands of years and has accumulated quite a lot. The 7 great pirate families are willing to open their treasury to the Lord. If Senior needs anything, you can use it as you wish. It's our honor. What I need is extraordinary. It's either the blood of 10,000 golden cores and 100 nascent souls, or immortal and divine materials. You might not have them. Jiang Tian said with a wry smile. 10,000 golden cores and 100 nascent souls. Immortal and divine materials. Yi Chun's eyes almost popped out when he heard that. As far as he knew, although the Yi clan and the other great pirate families had a strong foundation, they might not have materials of such level. Let's go back and report to the family. If we have them, we'll definitely inform you. Ying Long said. Even if we don't have them, we'll think of a way to search for them. We'll find them even if we have to turn the ruins of immortality upside down. Yi Chun's blood boiled as he said excitedly with a face full of anticipation. When the time comes, the 7 great pirate families will join forces with Senior Tai Chu. We'll conquer the ruins of immortality together and overthrow the Ruins Emperor's throne. Yi Chun took out a jade slip and handed it to Jiang Tian. On it was information about the territories the 7 great pirate families occupied in the various worlds, strongholds, secret signals and so on. Then he gave Jiang Tian a runic token and said solemnly, Senior, this is the token of the 7 great pirate families' alliance. If you need any help, just look for our strongholds. They will make the appropriate arrangements. Jiang Tian took it and asked, Actually, I've always been very curious. What exactly are the origins of your 7 great pirate clans? It should be related to the ancient heavenly courts, right? Senior, your plans are flawless. Exactly. Yi Chun's face was filled with admiration as he said, The 7 great pirates were originally descendants of the heavenly masters and divine generals of the ancient heavenly courts. For example, my family is a descendant of Patriarch Heavenly Crocodile, Yi Gongming, one of the 10 divine generals. As for Ying Long, he's a descendant of Divine General Ying Zihui. Back then, after the Breaking Era, many worlds were embedded in the orbit of Alpha Centauri. The world was in chaos, with volcanoes erupting, floods, earthquakes and snow disasters constantly erupting. It was like the beginning of chaos. More than half of the cultivators and mortals died. Following that, it was the era of Tao damage. Many gods of the ancient heavenly courts suddenly realized that the cultivation techniques they cultivated in were in conflict with the great Tao of heaven and earth. They could not produce even a tenth of their strength. Yet the Ruins Emperor's lineage invaded from Alpha Centauri without any prior notice. They destroyed the immortal ground and shook the foundation. Ancient sages like Ao Emperor perished one after another. Their defeat was like a landslide. The 4 heavenly masters and 10 divine generals perished. Their descendants could only lay low and conceal their identities. They endured silently and struggled to survive, avoiding the Ruins Emperor's pursuit. However, the glorious achievements of our ancestors and the blood feud were not forgotten by the juniors. After thousands of years of accumulation, we gradually recovered our strength and accumulated the means to fight the Ruins Emperor, allowing us to rise once again. We brandished our swords brazenly and took over the mountains as kings. We burned, killed, and plundered everywhere. To put it simply, we sought the ruins' emperor's wrath and gradually made a name for ourselves as the 7 great pirate families. So all of you are from famous lineages. You have extraordinary origins. Jiang Tian nodded slightly, then smiled and said, however, we still need to pay attention to strategy. The so-called strategy of war, in a nutshell, was to reduce the number of enemies and increase the number of people on one side. All of you will only incur the wrath of the heavens and the wrath of man if you keep on killing. You need to find a target. Our enemy is the Ruins Emperor. The other factions, those who resist the Ruins Emperor as well as those who are neutral, can be united and used. I understand. After meeting my father, I will definitely pass on your advice. Yi Chun said reverently. Jiang Tian suddenly looked at Ying Long and asked, Ying Long, is there a person named Ying Ziyu in your genealogy? He's one of my distant ancestors. He's the brother of my distant ancestral land's god Ying Ziyu. Senior, how do you know him? Ying Long was perplexed. I once met him on Earth in the solar system. Jiang Tian sighed wistfully. He immediately recounted how he had entered the Tunguska Fiend Lake and met the excavation vanguard, as well as how he had received their aid. 3,000 warriors digging deep into the earth, slumbering in the core. For 100,000 years their corpses remain, their obsessions undying. Their shouts are as magnificent as a song. After hearing the story of his ancestor, Ying Long was deeply moved. He was astounded. Compared to the bloody struggles of his ancestors, the tomb digging he was proud of was nothing worth mentioning. After Ying Long and Yi Chun bade farewell and left, Jiang Tian left the heavenly village a set of body-tempering cultivation techniques and many protective treasures. Under the reluctant gazes of the heavenly village's villagers and little Luofu's gentle sobs, they flew towards the forbidden land of the Steels. A day passed in the blink of an eye. In the central region of the mountain range, peaks that were more than 100,000 feet tall rose from the ground. They were like gigantic swords that pierced the heavens. They had a very sharp aura. And looking down from high in the sky, between the peaks was a gigantic tree that was 10,000 feet tall. It looked like it was carved out of jade. Its leaves and branches were green and glossy, emitting a resplendent glow. The surrounding spiritual energy lingered like clouds and mist, making it look very mesmerizing. Many people stopped outside the forbidden land, standing in the air and looking around. They were apparently Jiang Tian and the others. It's indeed the pearl tree. Jiang Tian was moved. The pearl tree was very old. It had existed since the Battle of the Deity Ground 10,000 years ago or even older. Could be traced back to before the interstellar wanderings. The spirit chi it contained was extremely dense and pure, almost like that of a deity material. Its function. It could definitely help Jiang Tian form the true seal of the law of wood and help the whirling divine tree form the nascent soul. Chapter 1544. There were thousands of steels around the giant tree. Some of them had already collapsed after 10,000 years of wind and rain. The words on them were already blurred, giving people an ancient feeling. This is the training ground and encampment of the guards of the ancient heavenly courts in the deity ground. They absorbed the spirit chi of the pearl tree to increase their power. When the Ruins Emperor's army invaded, the two sides fought a fierce battle and perished together with the enemy. Jiang Tian scanned with his immortal will and exclaimed, "These steels are their tombs." That battle was indeed very tragic. There were still traces of the Grand Tao in the sky, which were created by the powerful soul formation cultivators 10,000 years ago. They were like nuclear radiation and hadn't disappeared after 10,000 years. There were some miraculous sights such as the one-line sky and the flying mountain. But Jiang Tian knew that they weren't created by natural power. They were created by the overlords 10,000 years ago with their Dharma power or by smashing the mountains from the sky. There were sword marks, knife marks and arrow holes all over the mountains and the ground. Some ancient warships made entirely of black iron and bronze, modeled with divine blood, were embedded on the ground in disarray. They were like old generals who had survived hundreds of battles. Even now they were still towering and emitting magical power fluctuations. Besides, there were also some hidden restrictions and arrays in the white mist. Some of them were set up by the local cultivators of the deity ground or the descendants of the Ruins Emperor. It's indeed a forbidden place. Jiang Tian retracted his immortal will and exclaimed, Those arrays had not lost their power and were abnormally powerful, like poisonous snakes that could easily kill nascent soul heavenly lords and severely injure soul formation grand cultivators once they were unleashed. Apparently they were even more terrifying. The Jiang Tian discovered that there were female cultivators with sorrowful expressions. They were wearing the same robes and gathered on the hillside around the forbidden area. They were discussing spiritedly. The leader was the servant of Prince Chunyu who Jiang Tian had met once in the North Sea. She was a level 1 soul formation cultivator. It was Jiang and I heard that Kong Teichu is near the Fallen Leaf Lake. Why can't we find him when we go there? A female cultivator with an oval-shaped face said with reddened eyes. Although there is no detailed news, I think he must have been seriously injured after killing Divine Emperor Hanshi. He should be hiding now. Jiang and I sighed helplessly. This person seems to act recklessly, but he's actually very sneaky and cautious. He's already shut down the teleportation formations of the Northern Sea Realm, the Dragon Gate Realm and the Yingzhou Realm. He's clearly accumulating strength and avoiding the brunt of the attack. Humph. He's despicable and shameless. He won with an unfair advantage. The oval-faced female cultivator was an early-stage nascent soul cultivator. He's just a nascent soul cultivator. He's as weak as a chicken or a dog. Prince Chunyu Yuchilin, and even Emperor Hanshi must have been ambushed by him. Her appearance was very beautiful and gentle, and her figure was even more exquisite. She was extremely graceful, but her words were extremely vicious. After we find this treasure, we will find this Kong Teichu even if we have to dig 3 feet into the ground of Penglai. We'll cut him into pieces and extract his divine soul to burn in the fiend fire for 1,000 years. Yuchilin was known as Lord Peerless. He was kind, but he died in the hands of Kong Teichu. Prince Chunyu was handsome and had a noble background. He had gone through countless trials to protect the peace of the deity ruins, but he was also killed by this bastard. Kong Teichu is cruel and ruthless. He invaded our territory and destroyed our country. He deserves to die. He's just a despicable and shameless person. He came from the desolate solar system and didn't have much power. He shut down all the teleportation formations and he's just hiding. He doesn't dare to fight with us elites. When I see him, I'll slap him to death with a single slap. I'll avenge my idol Prince Chunyu. As for the other female cultivators, although most of them were only at the Golden Core realm, their verbal skills were top-notch. They were all filled with righteous indignation, cursing and ridiculing Jiang Tianji. Some of them even cried. That oval-faced female cultivator is called Su Romeng. She's the daughter of a noble and is known as a princess in the deity ruins. She's also a winner of the God of War list and her ranking is higher than mine. Long Xingnan explained with her divine will. They're all admirers of Yuchilin and Prince Chunyu. They even have an organization. For example, when Yuchilin participates in the God of War list trial, these members will cheer him on or provide him with heavenly treasures to promote his achievements. Oh, they're kind of like the fan clubs of celebrities on Earth. Yuchilin and Prince Chunyu are doing much better than me. They have so many female fans. I don't have any. Jiang Tian's expression was very calm. He suddenly realized what was going on, and he was observing these female fans with interest. But there's someone else. Suddenly, Sword Venerable Ao Tian exclaimed. Many flying swords with long tails let out loud rumbling sounds. They were like supersonic fighter jets, arcing through the air and getting closer to the Steel Forest Forbidden Grounds. The disciples of the Academy are here to search for treasures. You useless cultivators and ants, back off now. An arrogant voice came from the sky. It was like a deity's voice shouting at Jiang Tian and the others. The flying swords did not slow down in the slightest. With an arrogant aura they charged straight at Jiang Tian and the others. Long Xingnan wasn't happy. She snorted and was about to attack them. Jiang Tian waved his hand and said casually, "Don't fight them. Let's wait and see." The 100 Moons Academy was different from the Palace of the Ruins Emperor. Most of the disciples were actually descendants of the deity ground. They were only loyal to the Ruins Emperor because they had received the grace of the Ruins Emperor's empire and didn't know the truth, so they became enemies with Jiang Tian. At least for the time being, Jiang Tian didn't want to kill them as long as they didn't provoke him, and it wasn't time to fight to the death. Jiang Tian led the others to the side. At the same time they used their divine powers to change their appearances. Jiang Tian had seen the people on the swords before. They were the overlords on the war god role of the ruins of deity and the elites of the academy. Qing Aojuan, Su Chongqing, Luo Chongshan and the others all had extraordinary backgrounds. Senior brother Qing. You're here too. Jiang and I, Su Ruoming and the other female cultivators all soared into the sky to greet him. They bowed and clasped their fists with adoration. Jiang and I, Sister Ruoming. Qing Aojuan, Su Chongqing, Luo Chongshan and the other young talents greeted them and quickly got along well with them. All the teleportation portals here, including the one that Divine Emperor Hanshi and the White Tiger Guard used, a secret artifact, have been closed or even destroyed. If we hadn't sacrificed 3 geniuses on the God of War ranking, we wouldn't have made it here. As it turned out, they had captured a group of roaming cavalry in the Below Sea world, searched their souls, and obtained an ancient world cave teleportation formation, which allowed them to enter this world. The Emperor of the Ruins and the Tianmong Grotto Heaven are on business. Those who are not involved should leave now. Don't say that we didn't warn you. With a shout full of indifference and arrogance, more cloud buildings and flying boats arrived. Their momentum was even grander than the flying sword cultivators of the academy, and they were extremely arrogant and overbearing. That kid from the Tianmong Grotto Heaven is only about the same level as us, but he dares to show off just because he picked up a poor princess. Even Qing Aojun and the others showed a hint of envy and jealousy as they spoke to him through their divine sense. Those true artifacts and quasi-Dao artifacts could be used for spacewalking or even interstellar travel. They were priceless for both civilian and military use. In the 100 Moon Academy, apart from the Chancellor and the princes, even the elites on the war god role weren't qualified to have them. On the largest cloud tower, the eaves were raised and the arches were connected. There were carved corridors and paintings and there were flashing lights. It was mainly made of divine feather purple gold and inlaid with countless precious crystals to form a complex array. It emitted terrifying Dharma power waves and many of them had reached the level of a true array, able to withstand a blow from a soul formation overlord. Even a nascent soul cultivator wouldn't be able to move it. It was priceless and extremely rare in this world. Those who could control such a cloud tower were obviously rich and noble. Ants from the lower worlds are indeed as timid as mice. Many young men and women gathered. There were hundreds of them and most of them were golden core cultivators. There were also a dozen nascent soul cultivators. The leader was a man in a luxurious robe with wide sleeves. He looked handsome and extraordinary. He didn't look old, but he was already a mid-stage nascent soul cultivator. Next to him stood a woman in golden armor with a phoenix crown on her head. She was full of heroic spirit and held a Dao artifact saber. Her cultivation was at the late nascent soul stage, which was slightly higher. Master, this is Zhou Xian, the Zongzi of the Tianmong Grotto Heaven, one of the 6 grotto heavens in the ruins of deity. Ghost Wolf had already turned into an old servant in black. His pupils contracted and he immediately sent a voice transmission with his immortal will. Chapter 1545. Jiang Tian nodded slightly. Anyone who dared to call themselves a grotto heaven was definitely the strongest in the sect. Furthermore, they had to occupy a mystic realm and dominate 1,000,000 miles. In the ruins of immortality, there were only 6 grotto heavens among the thousands of sections. Although they were weaker than the academy, their strength was not to be underestimated. However, when Jiang Tian saw the numerous young men faintly surrounding the woman with the phoenix coronet and using her as the core, he couldn't help but ask with a smile, "This woman seems to have an extraordinary status." Princess Tingyu. Ghost Wolf's expression turned solemn as he asked in puzzlement, "Divine Emperor Hanshi's daughter. Her cultivation level is very high and her talent is extremely high. However, it said that she and her mother, the divine consort, fought for the rights to the harem with the divine empress. After losing, she was banished to the cold palace by the divine emperor and hasn't come out for 300 years. Why is she being released today? The ruins emperor has now mobilized all his people. As long as they can kill who doesn't come out." Jiang Tian said mockingly. At that moment Qing Aojuan took a step forward and cupped his fists. "Princess Tingyu, fellow Daoist descendant, we are here under the Academy's orders to search for or destroy the various ancient treasures in this world. Please cooperate with us." One was the top of the Academy's God of War list, while the other was the son of the Tianmong Grotto Heaven's sect master. The pearl orchid tree is a supreme treasure. The Academy doesn't deserve to have it. It belongs to the Ruins Emperor's Palace and the Tianmong Grotto Heaven. Zhou Xian didn't want to pass on his responsibility and said arrogantly. The orders of the Ruins Emperor's Palace rule the world. Who dares to disobey? You must have a death wish. Princess Tingyu also shouted coldly. You disciples of the Academy are but lowly commoners from the lower realm, slaves of the Ruins Emperor's royal family. Do you think you can compete with me? You want us to cooperate? If you dare to offend the princess, that's a capital offense. Zhou Xian said arrogantly. Qing Aojun was displeased. After a moment of silence he said, I heard that the restriction here is extremely powerful. Only soul formation experts can open it. Neither you nor I can do it alone. Why don't we work together to open the restriction and retrieve the pearl orchid tree? We'll bring it to the ruins of immortality. As for who it belongs to, it will be decided by the God of Swords and the Academy's teacher. What do you think, Your Highness? All right. I'll give you a chance to redeem yourselves. Work hard for this princess and I'll reward you handsomely. Princess Tingyu and Zhou Xian discussed for a while before nodding with an arrogant look on their faces. She was extremely arrogant and spoke bluntly. According to the observation and calculation of our Academy's math chancellor, in an hour's time, the protective restriction and formation of the steel forest will be at its weakest in 1,000 years. How about we work together to blast it open then? Qing Aojun said. Yes. Princess Tingyu made a soft sound of acknowledgement. She turned around and entered the attic of Cloud Tower. She did not appear again. The many cultivators present, be it the Academy's disciples or the royalty of the Tianmong Grotto Heaven and the Ruins Emperor's Palace, were silent and solemn. Most of them were swallowing pills and sitting cross-legged in the void to absorb and refine the energy. He wanted to be in his peak state when he forcefully opened the restriction and unleashed his strongest combat strength. Jiang Tian and the others were far away from the forbidden area. Jiang Tian clasped his hands calmly and looked at the many restrictions. He said with his divine sense, Wuxia, I've taught you the math of supreme calculus and quaternary calculus for the past day. You've already understood a little. It should be no problem to calculate and break these Dharma arrays and restrictions. Come and try. These Dharma arrays and restrictions were at the divine level. They contained extremely profound mathematical knowledge and their structure and operation were very ingenious. Their Dharma power was extremely powerful and their changes were so complicated that it was difficult to measure. At least 100 nascent soul cultivators or incarnation grand cultivators would need to use all their cultivation to forcefully break them open. Some of the Dharma arrays and restriction components could instantly receive external attacks and quickly convert them into the power of the Dharma arrays and restrictions. They could be used to attack and defend and were extremely difficult to break open. There were even many self-destructing components. Once the Dharma arrays encountered an unbearable external attack, a dimensional storm would erupt and tear the entire forbidden area, including the pearl tree, into pieces. It would be extremely difficult to use them again. However, in the eyes of Jiang Tian, who had been to many modern cultivation planets in his previous life and whose knowledge of math had reached the peak, these Dharma arrays were too simple and crude. It was like a college student looking at elementary school math problems. Everything was easily solved. Therefore, Jiang Tian didn't plan to do it himself. Instead, he asked Bai Muxue, who was obsessed with math, to practice. As senior, Bai Muxue was very excited. If it were in the past, she wouldn't even dare to think about using Dharma arrays and restrictions at this level. But after being taught by Jiang Tian, she felt that her math level had reached an unimaginable level. She felt very confident and was eager to try. Bai Muxue made a series of hand seals and scanned the patterns of the Dharma arrays with her divine sense. She frowned and suddenly became enlightened. She was quickly calculating and analyzing the structure and flaws of the Dharma arrays. 15 minutes passed quickly. Everyone suddenly felt that the Dharma arrays seemed to be a little unstable and there were loopholes. Qing Aojuan's face turned serious and he said coldly, Fellow cultivators, there are abnormal fluctuations in the Dharma arrays and the Dharma arrays. They are chaotic and unstable. Everyone, let's work together and open the Dharma arrays. Su Ruoming noticed Jiang Tian and the others and said coldly, You are just ants from the lower world. Leave quickly. Don't try to take advantage of us while we open the Dharma arrays and enter the forbidden area to search for treasures. Otherwise we will kill you. You can't open it. Jiang Tian revealed a mocking expression as he chuckled. Su Ruoming's face turned cold and she wanted to kill Jiang Tian. Fellow cultivators, don't just stand there. Let's attack the weak points together. Following Qing Aojuan's order, many war gods from the academy, cultivators from the Tianmong Grotto Heaven, and even the overlords from the Ruins Emperor's palace attacked the Dharma arrays together. Su Ruoming glared at Jiang Tian and also joined in to break the Dharma arrays. There were more than 20 nascent soul heavenly lords and a few hundred golden core overlords in total. When they attacked together, it was earth-shattering and earth-shattering. However, no matter how hard they attacked, although the Dharma arrays seemed to be on the verge of breaking, they were still there. When the Dharma power of the Dharma arrays was reduced to a certain level, they kept increasing and became more stable. Some of the Dharma arrays were even activated and poisoned, killing 3 female golden core cultivators instantly. There were also light beams that shot out and turned a nascent soul heavenly lord into powder in a flash. In the blink of an eye, they had lost dozens of people. Their blood was boiling and their nascent souls and golden cores were about to crack, but it was still useless. Then Qing Aojuan waved his hand and said, "Everyone know. This Dharma array is evil and it has many changes. Let's study it again and find the real loophole." Damn it. The Dharma arrays left by bumpkins in the deity land in the ancient times are still so powerful after 10,000 years? Zhou Xian from the Tianmong Grotto Heaven was enraged. He cursed, "I don't believe it. I have to destroy them." He waved his hand and a small bronze cauldron flew out. It became 1,000 feet tall and smashed towards the Dharma arrays like a mountain. This is the Xianwu cauldron of the Tianmong Grotto Heaven. Legend has it that the ancestral master of the Tianmong Grotto Heaven made it by an ancient soul formation cultivator. It contains all his achievements and can create Dharma fragments. It's a real mid-grade Dharma artifact. It can destroy everything and destroy everything. It's one of the 3 Dharma treasures of the Tianmong Grotto Heaven. Everyone turned pale with fright. It seemed that Zhou Xian was really determined to win this time. He even brought the 3 Dharma artifacts of the Grotto Heaven. Many people thought, a mid-grade Dharma artifact. It should be able to destroy the Dharma arrays. Even Qing Aojuan was slightly moved. The other gods of war prodigies all looked envious. They were war gods, but they didn't have the bloodline of the South Gate planet. They were the descendants of the deity land and most of them came from second-class planets. Some even came from third-class planets. They might be as powerful as Zhou Xian, but they were definitely not as strong as him in terms of resources. After all, he had the support of a Grotto Heaven. They weren't qualified to have a mid-grade Dharma artifact. They would be lucky if they could get an inferior grade or even a quasi-grade one. Boom. The Xianwu cauldron fell and the dimension below cracked. The turtle and the snake were entangled. The turtle and the dragon had 1,000 pairs of wings, flapping and opening their mouths. It was the Xianwu. The law of the black tortoise appeared and Daoist rhymes filled the air. The great Tao resonated and a mighty river appeared beneath the black tortoise's feet. Chapter 1546. Break it. In mid-air, Zhou Xian roared and activated the black tortoise's nomological laws. The river surged and 5 thunderclouds rose from the river. 5 layers of clouds and 5 layers of thunder, wind, cloud, thunder and lightning. The river was like a dragon, pressing down on the restriction with great momentum. The 6 grotto heavens of the ruins of immortality had all followed the ruins emperor to conquer the universe. The founder of the Tianmong Grotto Heaven was a figure of the same generation as the ruins emperor. Even the headmaster and the heavenly river starlord had sat down and discussed the Tao with him. As his direct descendant and the future sect master, Zhou Xian had endless resources in the grotto heavens. He was also extremely powerful and famous in the ruins of immortality. He used his divine power on the head of the soaring serpent, while the black tortoise below let out a dragon roar. Its sharp teeth and claws tore the sky apart, sometimes dimming it and sometimes illuminating it with lightning. All of a sudden the restrictive spell began to rumble. In the sky, a black and white taiji diagram appeared. The yin and yang in it became extremely thin. Within the 2 extremes, yin and yang alternated. In the next moment, the endless nomological laws that Zhou Xian had used were easily destroyed by the restriction. The black tortoise cauldron was sent flying uncontrollably for hundreds of miles. It only stopped after crashing through a few mountains. Zhou Xian was also sent flying by the power of the restriction. His face was pale. When he took the black tortoise cauldron to take a look, he could not help but feel his heart ache. Many of the cauldron patterns on it had been destroyed and there were even a few fine cracks. However, this also made everyone realize how terrifying this restriction was. No one dared to touch it easily. A few of the war god prodigies gathered together and discussed with their divine consciousness, studying the loopholes of this ancient restriction. Meanwhile, Wuxia turned a deaf ear to the changes in the outside world. Her eyes were slightly lowered as she carefully sensed and deduced the restriction in the steel forest. Finally, after another 5 minutes, a smile appeared on her pretty face. She said excitedly, "Senior, it's done. I know how to open it." "Yes. Let's try it." Jiang Tian nodded. Wuxia flew over and came to the edge of the forbidden area. She pointed in the air and a stream of true essence shot towards a restriction. "Sister Roaming, Senior Jiang and I, look at that woman." At this time, everyone noticed Wuxia's presence and exclaimed in surprise. After all, the Academy's army, the Tianmong Grotto Heaven, and the Ruins Emperor's Palace were presiding over the area. They had all agreed that they could no longer attempt to forcefully crack the array. Otherwise, the consequences would be even more severe. Wuxia's bold move naturally attracted everyone's attention, and they were all stunned by what they saw. Su Roaming leaped into the air and swung her sword at Wuxia's back without saying a word. "Bitch, is this yours? Who allowed you to touch it?" Wuxia was only a golden core cultivator. He could not withstand the attack at all. Su Roaming's attacks were exceptionally ruthless and cold. After all, she came from the upper realm. When she came to Penglai, she was like a city dweller looking at a country bumpkin. No, it should be said that she was like a white middle class in a developed country coming to Africa. She thought that she was superior to others and treated the cultivators and mortals of this world as ants. She didn't care about anyone. "If it's not hers, then it's yours?" Jiang Tian frowned and pointed with his finger. He didn't use any Dharma laws, but his seventh metal true essence was too powerful. A finger aura was enough to kill a nascent soul cultivator. There was a loud boom. The sword aura and sword chi exploded. Su Roaming staggered backward and spurted out a mouthful of blood. "You're a golden core cultivator?" Su Roaming looked at Jiang Tian furiously. "Who is he? Why do I feel that he looks familiar?" Meanwhile, Qing Aojuan, Su Chongqing, Luo Chongshan and the other elites on the God of War roll all looked at Jiang Tian suspiciously. They felt that Jiang Tian was very familiar. However, Jiang Tian's divine power to hide his energy and change his appearance was too powerful. Everything happened naturally and they didn't connect him to Jiang Tian. How dare a cultivator from Penglai act like a cockroach? "Let me kill him." Luo Chongshan was the youngest among the elites. He snickered and was about to attack Jiang Tian. "Wait. Let them try." Suddenly, Qing Aojuan waved his hand and bowed to Jiang Tian and Wuxia. "If you can help us break the array, we'll reward you handsomely, okay?" "As senior." Luo Chongshan immediately restrained his energy and looked at Jiang Tian and the others coldly. He didn't say anything else. He wasn't one of them anyway. If he died, so be it. Furthermore, it was impossible for a mere golden core cultivator to cause too much of a backlash from the restriction and implicate everyone. But if they were lucky enough to break the array, everyone would be able to save energy, although the possibility of that was extremely low. Wuxia turned a deaf ear to all of this. Her face was calm and serene as she immersed herself in the mathematical deduction and breaking the formation. Her left hand's slender fingers were constantly making calculations, while her right hand flicked out white threads of true yuan from time to time, hitting the various components of the restrictive formation. After the time it took to brew a cup of tea, her forehead was already covered in fine sweat, to the extent where it was completely red and hot. This was the result of her divine sense operating at a high speed. However, the restriction magical power was still continuously gushing out, showing no signs of retreating. How can an ignorant cultivator from the lower worlds break the array? Luo Chongshan was impatient and was about to kill. Suddenly, there was a series of loud noises as if a giant millstone was rotating above everyone's head. The powerful array's Dharma power suddenly receded and a giant hole appeared. Then it receded again and again. In the end, the array's Dharma power within 1,000 miles disappeared without a trace. At this moment, many of the cultivators present were stunned. They had never thought that a female cultivator from the lower worlds would be able to break the array's ancient array. That feeling was like seeing a praying mantis overturn a giant chariot or a small ant break a tree. It was extremely shocking. Senior, I didn't let you down. I did it. Bai Muxia waved her fists and jumped around like a child. She was so excited that her face turned red and her eyes curved into a beautiful crescent moon shape. No one had successfully broken the array of the steel forest for tens of thousands of years. Not only the Penglai world, but also the cultivators of Hylon and the ruins of immortality couldn't do it. If the array was the crown of all the divine powers in the cultivation world, then the array of the steel forest was the most dazzling jewel on the crown. And now she had successfully broken the array in half an hour. How could she not be happy? You're very talented in math. I didn't give you advice for nothing. Zhang Tian said with a smile. Then Zhang Tian waved his hand and said, let's go. Let's go in. But let me remind you that we broke the array, so the pearl orchid tree must be mine. You can take the other treasures as you wish. He didn't stop the young talents from the ruins of immortality from entering. They weren't the main force of the ruins of immortality at all. Just like the student army that was recruited during a war, they weren't even a regular army and weren't worth mentioning at all. The real main force of the ruins of immortality was the 100 or so soul formation cultivators. The sect master of the Grotto Heaven, the Grand Chancellor of the Academy, the Great Sikong of the Sky Palace and the old divine emperors of the Ruins Emperor's Palace. But at this moment Su Ruoming's figure flashed and blocked Zhang Tian's path. She stuck out her chest proudly and looked disdainfully at Zhang Tian as if she was looking at an ant. Get out. If you don't, I'll kill you. She didn't give any reason at all, as if it was only right to stop Zhang Tian from entering. Her tone was arrogant and unquestionable. You want to kill me with just you? Zhang Tian stopped and glanced at Qing Aojuan with a sneer. But the latter didn't care at all. She even glared at Zhang Tian, apparently acquiescing to Su Ruoming's actions. Zhang Tian sneered in his heart. He didn't want to kill those disciples of the academy, but it seemed that they thought his kindness was easy to bully. Of course he's no match for you, but what if I, Luo Chongqing, join forces? Luo Chongqing took a step forward and looked down at Zhang Tian. His face was handsome, his lips were red and his teeth were white. He looked like a refined scum. Senior sister Ruoming, senior brother Chongqing is willing to fight for you. Is he interested in you? He must be. I saw him flirting with you just now. You can be senior brother Chongqing's backup from now on. Women were always like that. Even the female cultivators who pursued immortality couldn't help gossiping. They all talked to each other with their divine consciousness. Seeing that Luo Chongqing was backing her up, Su Ruoming became even more arrogant. Her nostrils flared up to the sky as she looked at Zhang Tian with disdain and said coldly, "You're just an ant from the lower worlds. You're like a frog at the bottom of a well. You don't know who senior brother Chongqing is. He's in existence ranked in the top 5 of the Ruins of Immortality's War God rankings, a dignified intermediate stage nascent soul realm expert. Killing you is as easy as crushing an ant." Luo Chongqing. Your parents probably gave you this name because they wanted you to attain great accomplishments in cultivation and climb the long path to immortality, live forever and live a long life. Zhang Tian pondered for a moment and then he suddenly chuckled. But I'm afraid I'll have to disappoint them today. And what did you say? Luo Chongqing roared with rage. I said you're about to die. Zhang Tian spoke, yet he didn't hold back in the slightest. He stretched out his hand and condensed an enormous golden palm, and then he grabbed Luo Chongqing like an eagle grabbing a chick. Even if Luo Chongqing roared madly and erupted with numerous divine abilities of the laws with the intention of struggling free, it didn't change at all. In the next moment the enormous golden palm suddenly squeezed. Luo Chongqing was like a rotten tomato that had been crushed by a robust man. His flesh and blood flew, crystalline broken bones and internal organs shot out, and even his soul and nascent soul were crushed into powder. At this moment the entire scene was deathly silent, and even the sound of a falling needle could be heard. Only the whistling of the mountain wind, the rustling of the leaves, and the howls of the wild beasts in the distance were left. Everyone was shocked. Everyone had turned into a pile of clay and wooden statues that stood there without moving, and their faces were filled with shock and astonishment. No one had expected that Zhang Tian would actually be so formidable, and he directly crushed Luo Chongqing with a light clench of his hand. Su Ruoming, who was nearby, was even sprayed with blood and minced meat, and she let out a sharp cry as if she'd gone mad. As a golden core cultivator, she was a person that killed people like flies. Of course, she wasn't frightened by the bloody scene, but was terrified of Jiang Tian's cultivation and strength. Jiang and I was first stunned when she saw this scene, and then she revealed a slightly puzzled expression. Then she seemed to have thought of something, and her pupils suddenly constricted while her face turned snow white, and she said with a trembling voice, "He's Kong Teichu." After all, she had fought with Jiang Tian face to face. Although Jiang Tian had changed his appearance and suppressed his cultivation, his temperament and habitual movements were ingrained in his bones, and it was difficult to change them. If Jiang Tian hadn't exposed his cultivation, Jiang and I might not have been able to tell. But now Jiang Tian had crushed Luo Chongqing, and displayed strength comparable to that of a soul formation cultivator. She would be a fool if she still couldn't figure it out. Everyone couldn't believe what they heard. Chapter 1547. They did not expect Jiang Tian to rush to the Steel Forest Forbidden Grounds immediately after the battle at Fallen Leaf Lake. His reaction was too fast. "That's right. It's me." Jiang Tian used the spirit creation art. His facial bones and muscles squirmed as though they were alive, restoring his true appearance. He stood with his hands behind his back, looking down arrogantly as he said coldly, "Fellow Daoists, do you still want to stop me from entering the Steel Forest Forbidden Grounds?" Although everyone was trembling in fear, with some female cultivators even crying softly, no one dared to speak. They lowered their heads and submitted. A few of them looked in Princess Tingyu's direction with flickering eyes, revealing a troubled expression. The Ruins Emperor's lineage was extremely strict and had a strong imperial might. Further away, the Heaven Peak sect of the desert world had 100,000 cultivators and a training ground of 1,000 miles. However, because of a casual offense, the Ruins Emperor used a talisman decree to suppress the training ground by 200 miles. All of the disciples were turned into meat paste. Closer to them, Long Baxia of the Dragon Clan had entered the Ruins Emperor's palace to negotiate because his daughter had been captured. And the result? The sword god of the Ruins Emperor's palace thought he was too selfish and killed him on the spot. Prince Qiuming led the 3 guards to the lower realm and annihilated the entire clan. The Dragon Clan, which had thousands of years of history, was wiped out. It could be said that the Ruins Emperor's rule was too strict. Loyalty was the most important thing. Anyone who dared to betray him would die. Su Ruoming seemed to be unconvinced. Just as she was about to say something, Jiang Tian sent her flying with a slap. Half of her face was smashed. "Don't test my patience. Otherwise all of you will die." Jiang Tian said softly. "We dare not. Fellow Daoist Taichu, please be magnanimous and forgive us for our offense." Finally, it was Jiang Tian who took the lead and bowed deeply to Jiang Tian, speaking with a face full of fear. She had an ambiguous relationship with Prince Chunyu, almost like a couple. Of course, she wanted to kill Jiang Tian to avenge Prince Chunyu. However, did she have the strength to do so? She had just crossed the threshold of soul formation. Strictly speaking, she was not even at the first level. However, Divine Emperor Hanshi, a soul formation divine lord, had been killed by Jiang Tian. If she were to make a move against Jiang Tian, she would only be sending herself to death. Qing Aojuan, Su Chongqing and the other heavenly talents were still hesitating, but after seeing Jiang Ni's attitude, they quickly knelt down and bowed. "We don't dare." Not to mention Su Ruoming and the other female golden core cultivators. Jiang Tian was able to kill a semi-god realm warrior. They were nothing but ants in front of Jiang Tian. They knelt on the ground, unwilling and humiliated. "He is Kong Teichu?" Zhou Xian, the Zongzi of the Tianmong Grotto Heaven, was stunned. As the son of the Heavenly Abode sect master, how could he not know of Jiang Tian's great name? He was simply a demon-like existence. "Why aren't you kneeling?" Jiang Tian glanced at the cloud tower where Zhou Xian and Princess Tingyu were and sneered, "Do you want to die?" With a plop, Zhou Xian could not withstand the pressure and fell to his knees. "Greetings, Your Excellency Kong Teichu." Princess Tingyu also walked out slowly and knelt on the ground unwillingly. Even though she gritted her teeth in hatred, she had no choice but to kneel and submit at this moment. After all, Jiang Tian was a terrifying being who had even killed Divine Emperor Hanshi. Her strength was still too far away from his. Then, do you have any objections if I want to enter the Steel Forest Forbidden Ground? Jiang Tian looked around with his hands behind his back. Wherever he looked, whether it was Jiang and I, the heavenly talents on the God of War list, the children of Grotto Heavens or the princess of the Ruins Emperor's bloodline, they all bowed and said in a trembling voice, "We have no objections." The Steel Forest Forbidden Ground is an ancient treasure. Only a peak overlord like Senior Taichu is qualified to enter and occupy it. Zhou Xian even cupped his fists and said respectfully, "Kong Taichu, you are indeed here." Just as Jiang Tian was about to step in, all of a sudden, the mountains within 10,000 miles of the 10,000 feet mountain range began to tremble. The mountain peaks seemed to have come alive. From 10,000 feet to 10,000 feet, from 10,000 feet to tens of thousands of feet, they were like giant waves that lifted up a muscular man. Interesting. Jiang Tian scanned with his divine sense. His pupils constricted slightly as he immediately stopped in his tracks. The burly man had used some kind of creation arcane art to control the mountain range and turn it into a living thing to help him move. He stepped on the mountain range and walked on the huge waves. His divine sense was abnormally powerful and mysterious. He must have reached the peak of artifact refinement. The burly man was dressed in rough leather clothes. His bare upper body was full of lumps of flesh. His broad chest was knotted like a dragon's muscles. He carried a huge hammer and his face was covered in dust. "I've been looking for you in the Penglai world for a day and turned it upside down. You are indeed a greedy person. You're here to seek treasures." He looked disdainful as he laughed. The sound waves were like a giant dragon emerging from the sea, shattering the space. Lightning flashed and the surrounding mountains collapsed. One roar could shatter mountains and rivers. Everyone was shocked. This was a divine transformation realm powerhouse. Benshan. He is the core disciple of the Academy's headmaster and is ranked 5th. He is a divine transformation realm Grand Chancellor. His body is strong and his strength is as great as a mountain. He is ranked 1st among the chancellors in the Academy in close combat. He is proficient in the Star Essence Fire Principle and the Creation Arcane Art. He is extremely powerful. Ghost Wolf's pupils constricted. His sinister face was extremely solemn as if he was facing a great enemy. The black raven feather robe fluttered and stirred the space. He held the ear piercer tightly in his hand, causing circles of space ripples. Ban Shan, the headmaster's disciple? Jiang Tian narrowed his eyes. Jiang Tian saw through many of Ban Shan's dharma. Ban Shan was already at the middle stage of divine transformation realm, slightly stronger than divine Emperor Hanshi. "But you think you can kill me by yourself? You're too weak. You know I have a peerless fairy weapon. If I use it, killing you will be as easy as slaughtering a dog." Jiang Tian smiled and transmitted his voice through divine sense. "Kong Taichu, you are indeed powerful. You killed the 3 Golden Crow guards, Prince Chun Yu and Divine Emperor Hanshi. Such achievements and strength are almost comparable to the headmaster and the sword god of the Ruins Emperor Palace. In terms of one-on-one combat, I'm definitely not as good as you. But since we have lured you into the trap, why would a divine transformation realm cultivator like me appear in front of you?" Ban Shan laughed loudly. His body was as majestic as a mountain and was surrounded by the solar essence fire, thunder and other dharma. He was like a demon god that had descended. His aura was extremely powerful and seemed to be able to suppress the 9 heavens and 10 lands. Lured Kong Taichu into the trap? Many female disciples of the Academy, the heavenly talents of the gods of war, and even Zhou Xian of the Tianmong Grotto Heaven and Princess Tingyu trembled. Their faces darkened as they realized what had happened. "We are just pawns that lured Kong Taichu into the trap." Princess Tingyu looked miserable and her eyes were dull. She said with a trembling voice, "The heavenly talents of the god of war role are the descendants of the abandoned people. Why would the Ruins Emperor Palace care about your life and death? After suppressing the natives of the deity ground during the Age of Dao damage, the Tianmong Grotto Heaven once fought for power with the Ruins Emperor Palace. Although they were later suppressed by the Ruins Emperor and the headmaster, they are still a thorn in the hearts of the upper echelons of the dynasty. They sent Zhou Xian to the lower worlds to be Kong Taichu's cannon fodder. Jiang Inai is the princess of the royal family of the Western Liang world that was wiped out by the ruins of immortality. Although Prince Chun Yu dotes on her, the Ruins Emperor Palace is still wary of her. They took the opportunity to use her as cannon fodder to lure Kong Techu. If word got out, no one would suspect that the ruins Emperor Palace was trying to kill them all. As for me, I was the loser in the harem fight. Back then, Divine Emperor Hanshi wanted to kill me. Now that I've lured Kong Techu here, I'm making the best use of everything. After Divine Emperor Hanshi died, the overlords he sent to this world were all pawns to lure Kong Techu. After all, Jiang Tian already had the strength of a soul formation grand cultivator and was extremely difficult to kill. Besides, overlords at that level were proficient in divine powers such as hiding, qi concealment, creation and disguise. If Jiang Tian really wanted to hide, they wouldn't be able to find him even if they turned the entire Penglai world upside down. If they wanted to end the battle quickly, they had to strike accurately. They had to find a few cannon fodders and move around the Penglai world in a big way to lure Jiang Tian out. The real masters would hide in the dark and follow those cannon fodders. When Jiang Tian appeared, they would surround him and kill him. That was the most likely way to win. There's another soul formation cultivator? Ghost Wolf by Mushue's Sword Highness Outyan Zhang Qingyang and the others were astounded. When Jiang Tian killed Divine Emperor Hanshi, who was at the second level of the soul formation realm, he had used all 9 Dharma laws and was on the verge of using the heavenly sword. This time, Ban Shan was already slightly stronger than Divine Emperor Hanshi, but there were more soul formation cultivators working together to kill him. Jiang Tian might have to use the heavenly sword. Even if he did, he might not be able to win. Chapter 1548. When the plum blossoms are falling, frogs are everywhere in the pond. If you have an appointment, you won't come in the middle of the night. You're playing chess. Right at this moment, a leisurely and elegant chanting voice sounded out. A black and white rainbow pierced through the heavens and earth, traveling thousands of miles in the blink of an eye, rapidly approaching from the far east. The black and white aura tore the sky apart like a supersonic fighter and descended. He saw a man in green robes sitting cross-legged on a huge chessboard. Black and white round chess pieces floated around him, making loud noises. "Brother Black and White, you're late." Ban Shan cupped his hands and smiled. "I've been away for a long time. I met 2 old men playing chess in a small town and had a game with them. Luckily, I didn't miss the important thing." The man in an azure outfit smiled and tapped the chess pieces leisurely. He frowned and stared at the chessboard as if he were a famous scholar in the Wei and Jin dynasties. "Black and White. He's the disciple of the headmaster of the academy and he used to be a grand chancellor. I heard that he's been away for 1,000 years. He's finally here," Ghost Wolf said with his immortal will. This man entered the Tao through chess. He experienced the changes of life and death and understood yin and yang. He formed his own unique chess rules and understood the great Tao. His laws and great Daoists, every move is full of changes and unpredictable. Only when you're full and have nothing to do can you play chess, Jiang Tian said with disdain. Chess is just a small Tao. It's not worth mentioning. The 2 of them are far from enough to kill me. Yin and Yang, the 4 symbols, the celestial phenomenon and the changes of the 5 elements were all in the world. You could have just understood nature. Why did you have to use abstract chess to simulate your understanding? You're already at a disadvantage. What if I join them? As soon as Jiang Tian said that, a dazzling sword aura that resembled a dragon's roar shot over from afar. The sword aura sliced through the sky at the speed of light and landed in front of everyone, revealing a white-haired man in a white robe that fluttered in the wind. His aura was extremely sharp. The 3rd soul formation cultivator. Everyone was stunned. 3 soul formation cultivators were here. What did that mean? In the Hailan world, the fertile land world and the desert world, not a single soul formation cultivator had been born in the past 10,000 years. Even in the boundlessly vast ruins of Immortals, which used qi drawing arrays to forcibly gather the spirit qi of many worlds, there were no more than 100 divine transformation stage cultivators. The 100 soul formation cultivators were still unevenly scattered across the ruins Emperor's Palace, Sky Palace, 100 Moon Academy, and the 6 Grotto Heavens. Some sects, Grotto Heavens and states might only have 1 or 2 soul formation cultivators or none at all. In the end, in this small world of Penglai, including Jiang Tian, 4 divine transformation realm experts had gathered in front of the steel forest forbidden grounds. This was simply earth-shattering. Once news of this spread out, it would surely shock the world. So it's really a trap. Jiang and I, who was lying on the ground, slightly trembled as she murmured, "We are only a pitiful worm that attracted Kong Techu here. As for our survival, the upper echelons of the ruins Emperor Palace do not care at all." At that moment the three strengthened deities had yet to release their Dharma power and divine powers, but the power they naturally emitted was already making their bones creak. Even Zhou Xian, He Qing Aojuan and the other geniuses were trembling in fear. Their legs felt like jelly. As for Su Ruoming and the other female cultivators, they were already lying on the ground in fear. They had already forgotten about Yu Qilin and Prince Spring Rain's revenge. Even Princess Tingyu was trembling all over. If it weren't for Jiang Tian's protection with the wind, Bai Muxue and Long Xingnan would not have been able to withstand the power. They would have only been able to crawl on the ground. A divine transformation realm cultivator's nascent soul had turned into a divine treasure that contained a deity. It resonated with the great Tao of heaven and earth and controlled the great Tao fragments. Ordinary nascent soul cultivators would be like mortals facing a deity. They would not be able to withstand that terrifying power. The sword god of the ruins Emperor Palace? Jiang Tian's eyes were slightly cold. He looked at the cultivator on the sword who was surrounded by sword chi dharma and even had the aura of the great Tao of sword. Was this person the #1 sword Tao expert in the ruins of immortality, the legendary sword god of ruins Emperor's Palace who came from the depths of the starry sea? He did not look like one. His great Tao fragment was still at the star level, which meant that he was unable to walk out of a star. He was only on par with the two grand chancellors of the academy. The sword god of ruins Emperor's Palace came from the depths of the starry sea. The great Tao he comprehended should be even more powerful. He naturally could not reach the universe level, but he should at least touch the great Tao of a star system level. What kind of person is my master? Back then he was on par with teacher and could compete with him. Now he has reached the void reversion realm. You alone are not enough for him to come out of seclusion personally. The cultivator on the sword looked down arrogantly. Today the 3-foot-long sword in my hand is enough to slay you. He was not the sword god of ruins Emperor's Palace. He was only his servant. Long Xingnan, Bai Muxue, sword venerable Outyan and company were all stunned. The servants of the sword god of ruins Emperor's Palace had all reached the soul formation realm. They were comparable to headmaster's disciples. It was no wonder that the sword god was as famous as headmaster and star-lord Heavenly River in the ruins of immortality. They were the top 3 powerhouses of the ruins of immortality. Sword servant, killing Kong Techu is our highest mission. You almost came too late. What if he escapes? Ban Shan snorted unhappily. Before coming to this world, I made a trip to the fertile earth world and killed a few half-step soul formation cultivators who did not listen to the orders of the ruins Emperor's Palace. I don't want them to think that the ruins Emperor's Palace is a pushover and has no authority if my master does not appear for a long time. The man on the sword said casually. At that moment the fertile earth world was in chaos. The sword god's servant had descended to the lower realm to kill. He swept through the fertile earth world and killed 2 half-step soul formation cultivators in a row, forcing the cultivators of the entire star system to submit. Previously, the fertile earth world that was gradually leaning towards Jiang Tian because of Wu Shujian's lobbying quickly returned to the control of the ruins Emperor's Palace. Kong Techu, the ancient treasure, is here. To be honest, there are countless such treasures in the ruins of deity. It's not rare at all. The sword servant turned around and looked at Jiang Tian. If you sign a divine soul contract with us right now and swear never to offend the ruins of deity again, I'll let you live. We will let you live. The below sea world will belong to you, and we will even promote you to become an important minister of the Immortal Ruins Empire. Otherwise, don't blame us for bullying you with our numbers. Ban Shan bared his teeth and laughed menacingly. His energy was vast. The gods in the divine treasures roared and many fragments of the grand Tao shook. Many cultivators looked at Jiang Tian with fear in their eyes, not knowing what he would do. 3 soul formation cultivators working together. That was a rare battle. Even in the ruins of deity, a battle between soul formation cultivators was extremely rare, let alone 3 soul formation cultivators attacking one person. Although Jiang Tian was famous for killing Divine Emperor Hanshi, who was also a soul formation cultivator, facing 3 more powerful soul formation cultivators at the same time, Kong Techu will definitely die. This is an earth-shattering trap. Both the 100 Moon Academy and the Ruins Emperor's Palace have invested a lot. Ban Shan, the best cultivator in close combat, object controlling and artifact refining, the black and white chess master and the sword god servant are all people who have shocked the world. That sword servant has obviously inherited the true teachings of the sword god of the ruins emperor's palace. He's definitely not someone to be trifled with. Kang Teichu only has two choices, either he dies or kneels and surrenders. Many experts thought to themselves. 3 soul formation cultivators. Jiang Tian looked down and didn't say a word for a long time as if he had run out of ideas. When Su Roming saw this, she stood up in an arrogant and domineering manner. She let out a peal of laughter that sounded like silver bells and said arrogantly, Kang Teichu, kneel and surrender. 3 soul formation grand cultivators are here. How can a cultivator from a peripheral planet resist them? She thought Jiang Tian wouldn't dare to resist and would only surrender and beg for mercy, so she wasn't afraid at all and jumped up again. Chapter 1549. Do you think you have the right to speak here? Jiang Tian waved his fingers and slashed in the air, directly destroying her body and soul. Even her golden core was shattered. How dare you? Su Roming's face was still full of shock and fear before she died. She had never thought that Jiang Tian would be so powerful that he would still dare to kill her under the threat of 3 soul formation cultivators. The 3 soul formation grand cultivators didn't even change their expressions and didn't try to stop him, as if Su Ruoxia was just an ant. Her death in Jiang Tian's hands wasn't worth mentioning at all. In fact, at their level, their hearts were as tough as iron and they were already different from ordinary people. Life was just like grass in their eyes. A battle between soul formation cultivators would affect the whole situation. They were only thinking about how to kill Jiang Tian. They didn't care about the life and death of the others at all. It would be a great loss if they were exposed during the process of rescuing Su Ruoxia and were severely injured by Jiang Tian. Jiang Tian looked at Su Ruoxia and flicked his fingers. Who in this world can afford to kneel and surrender? I'm going to kill you today. I'll let the ruins of deity know that I can kill 1 soul formation cultivator and 3 soul formation cultivators. I'll still kill them as usual. How arrogant of you. The black and white stones' expressions turned cold as they suddenly raised their heads. A black go stone flew out from the go board, heading towards Jiang Tian. Boom. This chess piece enlarged in the wind, and it was actually a gloomy meteor that was 3 kilometers in diameter. It contained the essence of the moon, and it was extremely rich with yin energy and emanated clear radiance. It crushed space to the point it shattered and it smashed down from the sky. Today I'll sacrifice your blood to my sacred sword. The sword servant on the sword roared. The scabbard on his back made a noise and his sword jumped out. The 3-foot sword immediately turned into a long river made of long sword dharma laws. It contained the fragments of the Grand Tao and was full of Taoist connotation. It slashed towards Jiang Tian. Controlling objects, seal of 10,000 mountains. Na Banshan shouted. As his thick and strong fingers moved nimbly, the tall mountains rose from the ground as if they were alive, forming a mountain formation. Waves of earth vein energy gushed out. They were as thick as dragons, crisscrossing in all directions like iron chains that stretched across the sky, wanting to trap Jiang Tian. The area within a radius of 10 miles instantly turned into a hopeless situation. Not good. Retreat. Seeing this, Qing Aojuan, Su Chongqing and the others all turned pale with fright. They all stepped on their flying swords and quickly retreated, rushing out of the circle. Let's go too. When the War of the Gods begins, we are like ants in it. They'll be torn apart by the shockwaves in an instant. Zhou Xian complained incessantly as he flew into the Cloud Tower. Many Cloud Tower warships formed a torrent that shuttled through the Earth Vein Dragon and the Sword Chilas. Go. Jiang Ni's beautiful face turned pale. She used her teleportation ability and brought the many female disciples of the academy with her. She flew outside in a panic like a stray dog. It was safe to say that the 3 semi-god realm warriors were all masters of killing. They were cold and merciless. They only wanted to kill Jiang Tian and didn't care about the lives of the others. Rumble. Sharp blades crossed the sky, killing everything. The earth vein energy was heavy and crazily erased everything. The chess pieces and meteorites also created violent wind that tore the sky apart. The aftermath was earth-shattering. Senior, wait. We haven't escaped yet. Screams came one after another. Dozens of female cultivators of the academy were affected by the attacks. Their blood dyed the sky red as they died. Their bodies fell like rain and exploded. Even their golden cores and divine souls were destroyed. Bang! A cloud tower exploded and a giant mushroom cloud rose. Many cultivators of the Tianmong Grotto heaven were killed. Su Chongqing was affected by the sword chi of the sword servant. One of his arms was directly cut off and he fled with a huge string of blood. Kong Teichu, you should be honored that the two chancellors of the academy and the sword god's servant worked together to kill you. This has never happened before in the ruins of deity. But the three semi-god realm warriors didn't even look at him. They just unleashed their divine powers and attacked Jiang Tian crazily. Humph! You don't have the right to fight with me. Jiang Tian stood proudly in the sky and endured the violent attacks of the three semi-god realm warriors at the same time. However, he didn't even change his expression. Instead, he was at ease. The heavy earth vein energy, the overwhelming sword auras and the moonlight of the meteorites immediately turned into a calm stream when they were a mile away from him. There wasn't even a trace of energy around him. He had firmly blocked them with the sea-calming ice god law. All of a sudden he waved his sleeves and the Kunpeng law enveloped Long Xingnan, Ghost Wolf and the others. They pierced through the earth vein energy, the sword auras and the light of the meteorites like arrows and flew 100 miles away. So powerful. The three semi-god realm overlords trembled and they couldn't believe it. Jiang Tian was surrounded by the divine powers of the three semi-god realm warriors. Normal semi-god realm warriors couldn't even move their little fingers even if they wanted to move. However, Jiang Tian had used the Kunpeng's laws to break open space with a wave of his sleeve, sending the servants out. This was truly unbelievable. The three of them only felt that Jiang Tian, who had been tightly restrained by the Dharma restrictions, had hit the weakest part of their restrictions with a wave of his sleeve. It was like the array eye of the array or the Achilles heel of the iron skin technique. Jiang Tian waved his sleeves and the Kunpeng law broke the weakest part of their restrictions, forcing them to step back and take the initiative. Damn it! We can't let him do that. The three divine lords were so upset that they almost vomited blood. Swish! The sword servant took back the sword. Black and white pieces grabbed the sword and mountain move cut off the connection with the mountains. We have to use our full strength. This guy is too powerful. We have to kill him in this world no matter what. We can't let the flames of war spread to the ruins of deity. This is an order from the Emperor of the ruins of deity. The three of them looked at each other and communicated with their divine minds. You're courting death. You provoked the ruins of deity and invaded our territory. That's unforgivable. Ban Shan roared as his eyes widened in anger. He took a step into the air and flew towards Jiang Tian. He raised the gigantic hammer on his shoulder high and smashed it down. The hammer was made of some unknown precious metal. It had a sliver of chaos aura as though it was a divine artifact. In fact, the gigantic hammer was indeed extraordinary. He had once used it to forge asteroids and countless Dao artifacts. Its strength was unimaginable. Wherever the gigantic hammer passed, golden Dao charms emanated. The sound of the great Dao reverberated as bolts of lightning lingered like dragons. The grand Yang essence fire spewed out, shattering and collapsing the void as everything within 50 kilometers trembled. With a loud boom, the ground beneath the gigantic hammer cracked, forming a deep crater that spanned 5 kilometers. Mountains that spanned 100,000 feet collapsed one after another. The heaven and earth within 500 kilometers were affected. It was as though a hurricane had passed through, reducing countless trees to dust. In the end, even more mountain peaks collapsed. Rubble pierced through the sky, and the entire boundless mountain range shook. The mountain ridges rose and fell like waves, as if a great earthquake had erupted. Kill! Black and white tiled roared. The black and white chess pieces floating around him suddenly transformed into black and white chi. They spun in front of him like yin and yang fish, evolving into yin and yang. Following that, with a tap of the air, the black and white chi transformed into a shocking rainbow. It spun at high speeds like a top as it charged towards Jiang Tian. The yin and yang chi were derived from the great Tao of the chessboard. They were soft yet firm, extremely tough and sharp. One day when he could refine the yin and yang chi into chaos, returning from Taiji to infinity, he would have cultivated the divine power to its peak. When that happened, a single strike could reduce everything within a radius of thousands of kilometers to dust. could even encompass an entire continent. At that moment, although Black and White Child had yet to cultivate it to its peak, they were already extraordinary. The Black and White Chi were extremely fast, even slicing through space. Clang. Finally, it was the Sword Servant's turn to attack. The Sword Servant of the Ruins Emperor's Palace's sword god had a stern expression as he flicked his finger. An incomparably dazzling dragon-like lightning sword beam shot out from his hand. It instantly traversed a distance of 10 miles and arrived in front of Jiang Tian. That sword was so powerful that even Divine Emperor Hanshi would be moved by it. The nomological laws and great Tao fragments were completely contained. They were silent and only exploded within 3 meters. They were aimed at hitting Jiang Tian precisely without any wastage. Wherever the blade passed, the space cracked inch by inch and was annihilated into a pure void. The torrent of space flowed backwards and could easily destroy divine treasures. Even Ghost Wolf with his air-piercing blade couldn't break through the attraction of the torrent of space. He would be instantly devoured. The 3 experts who had descended from the ruins of immortality and gathered here to set up a peerless killing trap finally attacked with all their might. Moreover, they attacked with all their might, not giving Jiang Tian any way out. They wanted to eliminate all future troubles. How terrifying was that soul formation overlord's power when he attacked. The vast Penglai world resonated with the great Tao of heaven and earth. It was rumbling and shaking. Natural disasters such as hurricanes, thunderbolts and rainstorms arrived. Even geomagnetism and stellar storms suddenly erupted. The mountain range and the entire world were in chaos. The sun and the moon hung upside down as if they were about to collapse. He's too powerful. Is this the power of a soul formation grand cultivator? Qing Aojuan, Su Chongqing and the others kept retreating. They had already retreated 300 miles away, but they could still feel the powerful energy waves and pressure. They were already elites and elites among the younger generation in the ruins of immortality. It was easy for them to destroy cities and mountains with one attack. And yet, He Banshan's every move was too powerful, as if the world was about to be destroyed. A casual attack was enough to smash them into meat paste. In fact, the Sword Servant is more powerful. His control of the great Tao fragments and Dharma laws has already reached the peak. Qing Aojuan commented. Normal soul formation cultivators could shake 10,000 miles and move mountains and seas with one attack. Their power was indeed shocking. However, their power was too scattered. It was like throwing 100 punches might not be able to kill a person. But the Sword Servant was different. He gathered all the great Tao and Dharma laws within a 3-meter radius. The Dharma laws of swords in that area were extremely thick and boiling like an ocean. There were even great Tao fragments floating and spinning. They were extremely condensed. It was like concentrating all the power on a bullet which could kill with one shot, leaving the enemy with no chance to fight back. The disciples of the headmaster of the academy and the servants of the sword god all have the power to move mountains and seas and pick up stars and moons. Banshan is powerful and his body is strong. He's the best at close combat and his giant hammer even contains a great Tao fragment. Black and White Chi, the cycle of yin and yang, life and death, hardness and softness. The Sword Servant can control the great Tao fragment at will. Kong Teichu is still far from being able to do that. Jiang and I snickered and there was a look of longing in her eyes. Chapter 1550. The others, including Princess Tingyu, were also looking forward to it. For those cultivators who had been stuck at the nascent soul level for hundreds of years, becoming a soul formation cultivator was their only goal. Otherwise, they wouldn't have taken such a huge risk to explore the mysterious ancient treasures. Attracting Kong Teichu was part of their plan. They wanted to find the ancient treasures and improve their power. Too powerful. Too powerful. Kong Teichu is dead. Jiang and I mumbled to herself and her eyes glittered. Even though they were a few hundred miles apart, Jiang and I still trembled when she saw the giant hammer that seemed to be able to crush the world, the black and white chi that seemed to be born from chaos and the sword aura that shattered the dimension. A sense of satisfaction rose in her heart. Jiang Tian had killed her beloved Prince Chunyu and forced her to kneel this time, which made this princess of the northern Liang world, who had surrendered to the ruins of deity, hold a grudge against him. Boom! Facing the giant hammer surrounded by thunderbolts and heavenly fire, the yin and yang qi and the sword aura that contained the power of the grand Tao, Qin Fan's expression became serious. Jiang Tian's eyes revealed an unprecedentedly serious expression. His dantian suddenly rumbled and a 3-meter-long divine disc appeared behind him in a dazzling manner. Break! Jiang Tian stepped forward and dodged the sword servant's sword aura. He then got rid of the suction force formed by the dimension with the Kunpeng's speed law. He clenched his fist and the divine plate flashed and all of it was infused into his jade-like fist. Then he threw a punch. Boom! That punch was more powerful than a normal soul formation cultivator's. There was actually the aura of primal chaos circulating around it. It was peerlessly powerful and it crushed space to the point it was like numerous black holes. Flying. The forging hammer was actually sent flying, and Banshan himself was carried by the hammer like a spinning top, spinning at high speed in the air and quickly flying backwards. But he was flying slower and slower. Even though his clothes and hair were a bit messy, he didn't seem to have been hurt at all. Instead he drew a giant arc in the air with the power of Jiang Tian's punch and struck again. At the same time the black and white qi were also rapidly approaching. Jiang Tian snorted and reached his right hand into the void, shaking it lightly. With a ripping sound the void was torn apart. The green lotus golden lotus blossomed with boundless treasure light and appeared in Jiang Tian's hand. Flying. Jiang Tian casually waved his hand, and the green lotus golden lotus split the void with streaks of destructive light, striking the black and white qi. If he can't break it, you will suffer a backlash and even the colorful plate on your back will shatter. Seeing this, Jiang Ni coldly harumphed with disdain. The black and white pieces sat on the chessboard as steadily as Mount Tai, revealing a strong sense of mockery. Kong Teichu, you're too arrogant. This black chess piece was refined from a dark meteorite from the depths of the starry sky. It was extremely dark and lifeless. As for the white chess pieces, they were condensed from the energy of the solar storm particles. They were extremely masculine and full of vitality. The two were combined into one and refined for 3,000 years to form a set of black and white chess pieces. It had all the laws of life and death that the black and white pieces had merged with. It was made with laws as the chain and the Tao of life and death as the foundation. Even soul formation and divine lords would die if they were entangled by the black and white qi. Really? Then you can try. Jiang Tian grunted with arrogance in his eyes. The green lotus golden lotus continued to attack and the chaotic energy spread, clashing with the black and white qi. Bang! There was an earth-shattering explosion. Everyone was shocked when they saw that. The golden lotus petals were shot in all directions and the white qi dragon was torn to pieces like paper. The green lotus leaves and branches were like a black hole in the universe, swallowing the black qi dragon crazily. No. At this moment the black and white pieces shook violently and almost spurted out blood. They roared together with the entities in the divine treasures, shaking the world. He hurriedly formed a hand seal to retrieve the black and white qi. When the two kinds of energy turned into chess pieces and returned to him, he was shocked to see that all the white qi dragons had disappeared. All of the white chess pieces were cracked and dimmed, and half of the black chess pieces were swallowed by Jiang Tian's green lotus golden lotus. So powerful. The black and white pieces suddenly realized what had happened. They were so shocked that the muscles in the corners of their eyes trembled crazily. This little bastard used the killing law to break my white qi chess piece and the green leaves to create the life law to swallow the death qi black chess piece. His attack also contained the life and death law. However, he's just a dharma law. How can he break my Tao? But then, the dharma laws and fragments of dharma laws of Banshan and the sword servant had come back and attacked crazily again. Flying. Jiang Tian performed the Kunpeng's speed and broke through the air. He dodged the silver snake-like fragments of the sword Tao and fought with Banshan continuously. The sword servant's Tao laws weren't much more powerful than Banshan's. But they were very condensed and their power was restrained. Once they exploded they could easily kill a normal soul formation cultivator. Jiang Tian couldn't touch them easily so there was no need to take the risk. His strategy was to defeat them one by one and kill Banshan first. Flying. When Jiang Tian collided with Banshan's giant hammer for the 5th time, he felt that Banshan's power seemed to be much stronger than before. He recalled that every time he attacked his power was even stronger than before. Borrowing power? Jiang Tian frowned slightly. Banshan was sent flying like a spinning top by Jiang Tian again, but he took the opportunity to draw a huge arc in the air again. He was surrounded by thunderbolts and divine flames. He kept releasing a small part of Jiang Tian's fist power into the air and merged most of it into the giant hammer, which smashed forward with a thunderous force. 1 hammer. 2 hammers. 3 hammers. Jiang Tian punched again 10 times and Banshan hit back 10 times. And each hammer was fiercer than the previous one. The last hammer was almost 10 times more powerful than the first one. It seemed to be able to shatter stars. Clang. But when the fist collided with the giant hammer for the last time, Jiang Tian looked bitter and quickly retreated. The divine disk behind him seemed to have dimmed a little and his face was as pale as paper. The Dayan Law. This is the Dayan Law created by the headmaster. It can instantly deprive others of their power and laws and turn them into his own. Qing Aojun exclaimed. If the headmaster hadn't been born, the ruins of immortality would have been like a long night. The headmaster of the academy was a brilliant, eclectic and brilliant sage. Back then his disciple Yan Hua had touched 10 kinds of laws and successfully controlled 4 of them, which gave the headmaster a lot of inspiration. They worked together to create the Dayan Law. With this Dao Law, one's potential could be stimulated and completely comprehended. One could control billions of laws and be infinitely close to the great Dao, greatly increasing the probability of becoming a soul formation cultivator. This was the first stage of the development of the Dayan Law. In recent years, the headmaster had created the second part of the Dayan Law. In short, the second part of the Dayan Law could borrow other people's true essence, qi, blood, and the great Dao of laws and turn them into his own power and laws. His attacks would be stronger than the previous one. If he mastered this Dao Law, he could kill people above his level. Theoretically speaking, even if a nascent soul cultivator fought against a soul formation cultivator, as long as he could withstand 100 attacks without dying, he could kill a soul formation cultivator above his level. It's a very advanced law. Such a Dao Law is close to the great Dao of heaven and earth. Even Jiang Tian sighed. This Grand Chancellor Ban Shan's magic power, martial techniques and corporeal body were all extremely strong. His corporeal body was especially strong, allowing him to withstand over 10 punches from Qin Mu. That was why he could use Great Evolution Dao Law to transform and use Qin Mu's attacks. Even if Jiang Tian only used his fists, it was already terrifying enough. It could be said that this Dayan Law was very suitable for him. It was as if it was tailor-made for him. But this is the end. If my punch is 10 times or 100 times stronger, can you withstand it? Jiang Tian sneered. He slowly retracted his fist at his waist. The golden divine disk behind him suddenly dimmed and shrank to a third of its original size. In the end it completely disappeared. The next moment, Jiang Tian punched out. Heaven and earth were in chaos. The wind whistled and a 10-mile space tunnel was created. Gung Metal Divine Fist. The Gung Metal Divine Fist was originally a peerless divine power that was activated after the Gung Metal Divine Body transcended into the Gung Metal Immortal Body. Strictly speaking, it didn't belong to the human world at all. It belonged to the celestial world and its power was extremely terrifying. Even if at this time several kinds of Jedon in Jiang Tian's divine disc had reached the peak, but to make a full blow he had to use the Super Divine 9 transformation technique to forcibly transform the other kinds of true essence coefficients into the 7th metal true essence. Boom. With this punch, a golden light that penetrated the heavens and the earth appeared between heaven and earth. Everything within a 10,000-mile radius trembled. The mountains within 1,000 miles all collapsed and trembled as the fist energy passed by. Block it. Banshan, be careful. Seeing the power of this punch, black and white qi flew out with the life and death laws as if they were facing a formidable enemy. Before Jiang Tian's fist energy really arrived, a Tai Chi Yin and Yang shield was formed between Jiang Tian and Banshan. Banshan's figure retreated like a dragon. He suddenly widened his bell-like eyes and gritted his teeth with a crazy expression. Obviously he also knew that it was the most critical time. As he shouted, small stones flew out from his storage bag. They turned into huge meteorites. Some had even reached the level of a small planet. They were at least 100 miles wide and filled the void. Clang. The Tai Chi Yin and Yang shield shattered. Roar. The god in black and white sun's body roared to the sky. The world felt it. Thunder exploded and lead clouds gathered. His god had already cracked. Hundreds of meteorites scattered and exploded. The world was in chaos. Banshan was punched. His bones and tendons were broken. There was a huge pit in his chest. His body was covered in blood and his divine treasures were cracked. He flew more than 10 miles away. Jiang Tian's eyes were cold and he was about to kill him. Not only did Ban Shan not look painful, but he also sneered and said, "Kong Teichu, you've fallen into my trap. You're dead." Galaxy Spacelock. Jiang Tian was stunned and thought, "Oh no." All of a sudden, countless meteorites and small planets let out endless light and Dharma laws, intertwining into a net and enveloping Jiang Tian. Jiang Tian felt as if he had fallen into 10,000 mountains and couldn't break free at all. A domain. Jiang Tian realized that Ban Shan had collected countless meteorites and small planets and refined them into a starry sky array, which contained the fragments of the Grand Tao and formed a domain unique to Soul Formation Grand Cultivators to trap him. He had just scattered countless meteorites and planets not to resist, but to form an array and a domain. Oh no! Jiang Tian's heart sank. He quickly took back all the true essence of Gong metal and split it into 9 kinds of true essence. The divine plate behind him shone brightly and kept expanding. Jiang Tian only needed a flick of his finger to restore the Kunpeng laws to the peak state and break the space forcefully. However, in a battle between soul formation overlords, the other party was enough to completely kill Jiang Tian in a blink of an eye. Too late. You can't escape. The sword servant chuckled. Crack. 3 meters behind Jiang Tian in the air, a sword light suddenly appeared out of nowhere. It was almost impossible to describe the sharpness and speed of the sword with words. It was like an antelope hanging its horn, or an elephant crossing a river, as it pierced through Jiang Tian's body. Chapter 1551. Even the sword servant himself was aware of it. That was the most powerful slash he had ever made in his life. He had truly reached the highest level of sword Dao, where his sword was unpredictable. It could be said that there were only a handful of soul formation grand cultivators in the ruins of deity who could make such a terrifying slash. Jiang Tian had pushed the 10-foot divine disc to its limit and turned it into 7th metal true essence. He hadn't had time to retrieve it and break it down, so he couldn't use the Kunpeng laws. He was also locked down by the galaxy space locking array. He was in a desperate situation at the moment. Senior Master, use the heavenly sword. At this moment, Ghost Wolf and Ao Tian Swordmaster exclaimed. Long Xingnan and Bai Muxia even had tears in their eyes. Ah, Kong Teichu is dead meat. Jiang and I and the others burst into laughter. Long Xingnan, Ghost Wolf, you've betrayed the Emperor of the Ruins. You'll be punished later. Princess Tingyu and the Tianmong Grotto Heavens Zhongzi Zhao Shanhe looked at Ghost Wolf and Long Xingnan with murderous intent. The sword servant's sword laws contained fragments of the sword Dao. It was even more powerful and was comparable to an attack from a peak-stage soul formation cultivator. Jiang Tian had used up all his energy and hadn't recovered yet. He was at his weakest state and was completely at the mercy of others. While everyone was screaming, they saw the sword aura of the Dharma laws pierce the divine disc behind Jiang Tian and the power of the fragments of the Grand Tao burst out. Crack. The divine disc was penetrated by the sword aura. With the wound as the center, dense cracks spread like a spider web and covered the entire disc in the blink of an eye. Rumble. The fragments of the Grand Tao contained in the sword aura exploded at the same time. Dharma laws surged like an ocean and immediately covered the 10-foot divine disc in Jiang Tian's body. They wrapped around Jiang Tian like a crystal cocoon and killed him crazily. Crack, crack. Without the Kunpeng's laws supporting him, Jiang Tian was unable to struggle free in the slightest. His body shattered and numerous blood-colored cracks appeared on his body. One of his arms miserably exploded, causing divine blood to spray out and dye the sky red, revealing his sparkling and translucent divine bones. No. Jiang Tian raised his head and roared. His hair fluttered in the wind like a waterfall. Tears of blood rolled down his cheeks as divine light shot out from his eyes. He was filled with unwillingness, anger, battle intent, and murderous intent. Of course, he was unwilling to give up. He followed the path of his predecessors and traveled 40,000 light-years to arrive at a foreign galaxy. He went through untold hardships and disregarded life and death, all for the sake of reclaiming his homeland and avenging the ancient grudge. He wanted to one day drive a long chariot through the ruins of immortality. He wanted to feast on the flesh of the barbarians and drink the blood of the ruins' emperor. He wanted to sweep away all enemies and plant the foundation of Earth for all eternity. And now, the revenge from the ancient times had yet to be avenged, and the fate of Earth was still unknown. But he was killed by 3 semigod realm cultivators working together. How could he accept this? How could he not be angry? This sword light was extremely sharp and pierced through Zhang Tian's body and dantian, flying out with a spray of blood. In an instant, Zhang Tian's aura plummeted once again. On the divine disk, the light that had been slowly recovering suddenly stopped and dimmed. Kang Teichu, you're indeed talented. If you were given another 10 years, no, maybe a year, you would have successfully entered the nascent soul level. Your divine power and cultivation art are extraordinary. You can kill semi-god realm cultivators when you're just a golden core cultivator. Once you enter the nascent soul level, even our masters, the sword god and Lord Tianhe, will be afraid of you. Even though Ban Shan was complimenting him, his rough face was already as cold as iron and the viciousness in his bell-like eyes was extremely strong. He didn't care about the blood flowing out of the wound on his chest. He quickly cast spells with his hands and formed a domain with the galaxy space lock array. The space turned into an iron block and firmly locked Zhang Tian's body. He said coldly, "Unfortunately, you're too aggressive, too bold and too arrogant. You don't know how to hide your strength and defend yourself. You've exposed yourself too early. There's no way you can win against 3 semi-god realm cultivators today. You can only die here with regret. Ban Shan, Black, White and Sword Servant, if you can't kill me today, I, Kang Teichu, swear that I'll cut you into pieces one day." Zhang Tian gritted his teeth and shouted. Flames of hatred shot out from his eyes. He swayed his body and activated all kinds of divine bodies and dharma laws. The phantoms of Gingjin, Immortal God, Thunder Mantis, Sea Calming Ice God, True Fire Vermilion Bird, Origin Returning Taotai and Kun Peng flashed across the sky, trying to break free. The domain formed by the galaxy space lock array began to collapse and the colorful starlight laws were broken. Zhang Tian seemed to be able to break free from the starlight laws and the great Tao. How is this possible? Ban Shan was shocked. His body shook violently and he shouted. His disc-shaped golden core is already full of cracks and his physical body is also broken. How can he still break through my galaxy space lock domain? Black, White, do it. I'm coming. At this moment, Black and White Child had already recovered to their peak state after a period of recovery. Hearing this, they formed a hand seal and the black and white cheese transformed into a yin-yang tai chi diagram in the sky. It contained the great Tao of life and death and it covered the sky and covered the earth. It pounced down and enveloped Zhang Tian's entire surroundings, then transformed into a huge black and white ball. Even with the galaxy space lock array, they could at least see Zhang Tian's figure. But then they could only vaguely see wisps of golden light, black light, flames and thunderbolts. A flying sword slashed out from time to time, but the black and white chi kept circulating and couldn't be truly cut off. In the end, even the golden light, black light, thunderbolts and flames couldn't be seen. Zhang Tian was completely sealed inside. Then the sword servant's hands trembled and his face turned pale. He seemed to be struggling to make a sword spell and shouted, "Kang Teichu, this is the last attack. It's time to end it. Die." There was a whoosh. The sword light condensed the great Tao fragments and appeared out of thin air again like an electric dragon. It broke through the air and stabbed towards Zhang Tian in the black and white chi ball. "You can't kill me." An angry roar came from the black and white ball. Whoosh. There was a whoosh. An ancient sword with a simple design, dull and lusterless as if it didn't have the slightest fluctuation of laws, suddenly stabbed out of the black and white ball, half of the sword's blade emerging. Then it slashed in the air. With a whoosh, the Dharma laws and great Tao of the galaxy space lock array, the black and white chi, the great Tao of yin and yang, and even the great Tao sword light of the sword servant disintegrated in an instant. It was even to the extent that many asteroids exploded like giant firecrackers and were annihilated and dissipated in the air. How is this possible? Ban Shan said in disbelief as he spat out a mouthful of blood after the destruction of the galaxy space lock array. At this moment Qing Aojuan, Zhao Shanhe, Princess Tingyu and even Jiang and I were terrified and full of disbelief. They didn't expect Zhang Tian to still have the power to break free from the domain. It's the heaven-severing sword. It's the heaven-severing sword of Emperor Xingzhong Li, the heaven-severing sword of the heaven-severing sword. Black and white chess retreated together with the chessboard and said angrily, "This kid is only a golden core cultivator, but he can activate the heaven-severing sword." The heaven-severing sword was a deity artifact. Strictly speaking, it didn't belong to this world. It was born in the Dharma laws of the deity realm and contained the Dharma laws or great Tao of the deity realm. Once it was activated, even a wisp of it could break normal Dharma laws or even saint-level Dharma laws. It could even easily destroy the great Tao of the lower worlds. Come, let's fight. At this time Zhang Tian took a step out of the billowing dust. He held the sword in his hand. Although the divine disc on his back was dim and cracked, his body was shattered, revealing his bones and organs, and his entire body was drenched in blood. His clothes were ragged and he seemed to be in a sorry state. His aura still surged into the heavens. He was like a peerless immortal king that had descended into the mortal world. His energy has weakened. Even with this deity artifact he won't be able to activate it for long. Kill him and this deity artifact will belong to us. The sword servant stared at the old sword in Zhang Tian's hand with greed in his eyes, like a hungry ghost seeing delicious food. Deity artifacts, even refined ones, had never appeared in the ruins of deity, not to mention the heaven-severing sword, which was a natural deity artifact. In the eyes of the sword servant, the heaven-severing sword was as precious as half of the ruins of deity. It was a peerless weapon. However, what he said about killing Qin Fan and taking his treasures made sense. 4 golden core, nascent soul and soul formation cultivators. Deity artifacts were like children facing missiles or nuclear weapons. They were extremely complicated and difficult to control. They would have to use all their strength and think hard to activate them once. At this moment he ought to take advantage of the time when Zhang Tian was injured and weak to not let him off. He ought to beat him up while he was down and completely annihilate him so as to eliminate all future troubles and seize his treasures. Of course. Kill him. While Ban Shan and Black and White Chess were energized and were about to rush forward and cut Zhang Tian into pieces, suddenly, plang, a giant pair of crocodile scissors appeared out of thin air and cut towards the 3 of them. The teeth of the scissors were like peerless heavenly swords. Each of them was sharp and there were fragments of the great Tao around them. They tore through the air with endless power. Igongming, one of the 7 great ancestors. Why did this old man come to the mortal world? Ban Shan and the other 2 were shocked. They used their own unique skills. Dharma laws boiled, great Tao fragments rumbled, sword auras burst out, black and white chess pieces flew, giant hammers swung and meteorites flew across the sky, clashing with the crocodile scissors. The 2 sides fought dozens of times in the blink of an eye, breaking the air and collapsing mountains. An area of dozens of miles was instantly razed to the ground. Although the 3 of them were very powerful, they were still forced to retreat by the scissors. Cold sweat came out of their foreheads and they complained. Ban Shan was even sent flying dozens of miles by the scissors. He spat out blood and his bones were broken again. Suddenly, an ancient existence that was hundreds of feet tall appeared out of thin air and blocked Zhang Tian behind him. With a wave of his hand, the crocodile scissors shrunk and fell into his hand. This old man had a crocodile head and a human body. His bloody mouth emitted a thick smell of blood and his pair of golden vertical pupils were very cold. He was wearing a rusty and worn-out armor, a waistcoat and shorts. His exposed skin was covered with hard scales, and there were terrifying bone spikes on his back. He had webbed feet and he was stepping on turbid water. His 9 steel whip-like tails poked out of the round holes in his shorts, swinging back and forth. He looked like a demon or a god, terrifying beyond compare. At this time he didn't reveal his golden core Dharma form or nascent soul Dharma form. It was his original body, but he was hundreds of feet tall. It was really terrifying. The mighty old man was actually very thin. His ribs were like steep mountain peaks and he was all skin and bones. His aura was a little weak, but his strength was still shocking. Fuck. These 3 old fogies bullied the weak with their numbers. How evil. If you have the guts, fight with me. He glared and shouted. His voice was like a great bell that shook the air. Lead clouds rolled and thunder exploded within 1,000 miles. Chapter 1552. Even though they were hundreds of miles away, Zhao Shanhe, Qing Aojuan, and the rest were still vomiting blood from the impact. They fell to the ground like toads, unable to get up. Why is he here? Only Jiang and I could barely hold on as he protected Princess Chunyu. However, he still felt terrible and was on the verge of collapsing. His face was pale from fright. Once this old fiend takes action, Senior Grand Primordium will be safe. At the very least he can keep his life. Ghost Wolf and Long Xingnan revealed a look of ecstasy. Senior Ghost Wolf, who is he? Bai Muxue and Sword Venerable Outyan had never seen him before and were shocked. This is an existence that gives the ruins Emperor's Palace and the Academy a huge headache. Ghost Wolf smiled sinisterly, but there was a tinge of fear deep in his eyes. Igongming. He was a veteran soul formation cultivator who had experienced the age of Dao damage. He was once famous and was a peerless general under the Ao Emperor. He had once fought the ruins Emperor and teacher and survived hundreds of battles. He was known as a living fossil. He was the only surviving heavenly crocodile god among the many heavenly masters and heavenly generals of the ancient heavenly courts. Later on, he led the remnants of the ancient heavenly courts and their descendants to rise to power, becoming one of the 7 famous pirate families. It was a huge headache for the ruins Emperor's Palace and the Academy. Senior Yi Gongming, His Majesty the Academy's teacher Heavenly River Star Lord, and His Excellency Sword God all hold your talent in high esteem. The sword servant's eyes flickered as his expression turned solemn, as though he was facing a great enemy. He forced a laugh and guided him patiently. You are a beauty, so why did you become a thief? You're already so old, occupying a mountain and calling yourself king, raiding and robbing. Every day is precarious, yet you're still trembling in fear. What's the point? Why don't you turn over a new leaf and submit to the ruins of Immortality Dynasty with us? You can be a general and enjoy the prosperity of the world, enjoying endless cultivation resources. If I were a spineless coward who only craves for pleasure, I would have submitted 10,000 years ago. Why would I wait until now? Yi Gongming grabbed Jiang Tian and placed him on his shoulder. He laughed arrogantly and said, if you 3 kids know when to back off, I won't make things difficult for you. By the way, pass a message to teacher and the ruins Emperor. I'm about to blow their heads off. It's fine if you don't retreat. This old man's crocodile beak scissors haven't eaten humans for a long time, and it's long been unable to endure the thirst. Today I'll drink your blood to my heart's content. You only have 3 seconds to think about it. What should we do? The sword servant, Ban Shan and Black and White exchanged glances, and they saw the deep unwillingness and worry in each other's eyes. Originally, Kong Teichu was already heavily injured and exhausted. Even if he had the absolute heaven sword, he could still be killed in a matter of seconds. However, Yi Gongming suddenly interfered. If they wanted to kill Jiang Tian, it could be said that it was very difficult. What they were more worried about was the alliance between Jiang Tian and the 7 great pirate families. It was like a rope that was easy to cut, but when many ropes were twisted together, it would be very troublesome. I advocate war. Yi Gongming is old and weak, his lifespan is about to run out. His attack just now was indeed powerful, but it is difficult for him to continue, it is difficult for him to sustain a protracted battle. The sword servant's killing intent surged. He glanced once more at the absolute heaven sword in Jiang Tian's hand, his eyes filled with fanatical greed. Retreat. Yi Gongming controls the unknown teleport array. Do you think he's the only one who came here? Black and White looked worried and scanned the surrounding area with their immortal will. If other soul formation cultivators invade this world, we'll be in great danger if there are 8 or 10 of them. The 2 of them had different opinions, so they both looked at Ban Shan. Cold sweat rolled down Ban Shan's forehead like a waterfall and the muscles around his eyes were trembling. Apparently he was having an intense mental struggle and was extremely nervous. In the end he gritted his teeth and shouted, I advocate war. There were too many reasons to advocate war, so Ban Shan didn't need to say more. For example, the Emperor of the Ruins had already issued a kill order. Once they failed the mission, they would be severely punished no matter how powerful they were. Not to mention that they would be immediately sent to the god execution stage and killed, they would at least be sent to a dead planet and be imprisoned. For example, they knew that the ruins of deity were facing a great crisis, so they had to go to Earth to find a new place to live. If they didn't kill Jiang Tian and open the many teleport arrays to enter the solar system, they and their descendants would all be killed. So let's fight. Black and White didn't hesitate at all. Their will to fight was rising. He glanced at Princess Tingyu and the others before he shouted coldly, all of you step back. This battle will cause the heavens to collapse and the earth to rend. I understand. Princess Tingyu, Zhao Shanhe, Qing Aojuan and Jiang Enai were startled. They all realized that the 3 soul formation cultivators were determined to kill Kong Teichu and were about to perform their best skills to fight Yi Gongming. That kind of battle would burn their divine powers to the extreme. One attack could destroy 1,000 miles away and shake the world. Given their level, they wouldn't be able to withstand it at all. They released many Dharma artifacts to float in the sky. Then they either rode on their swords or rode on their boats, pushing their speed to the maximum, and retreated again and again. After retreating for a few thousand miles, they had already reached the edge of the mountain range. You're asking for death. Yi Gongming's eyes flashed fiercely. He held the crocodile scissors in his hand and shouted in an overbearing manner, "The heavenly crocodile clan can swallow the stars and shatter the moon. If it weren't for the fact that I'm not acclimatized and my cultivation method is not compatible with the great Tao, I would have killed even the emperor of the ruins. Do you really think I'm easy to bully? You've been a soul formation cultivator for a few thousand years. Now you're still unable to improve after such a long time. What's there to be proud of? We're not afraid of you." Ban Shan roared. The muscles on his resolute face trembled and his will to fight was boundless. "Just because your cultivation method is incompatible with the world, you're inferior to us." The sword servant looked at Yi Gongming arrogantly. He thought Yi Gongming was only powerful and that he would be defeated again and again. "Kill." Black and White said concisely without the slightest nonsense. The two sides had fought for 1,000 years and their hatred was as deep as the sea. The Empire of the Ruins of Immortality had also extended an olive branch and tried to recruit them. But the 7 great pirate families refused. They were the most stubborn of the rebel forces in the Ruins of Immortality, and Yi Gongming was their spiritual leader. During the Age of Tao damage, your ancestors attacked the ancient heavenly court with that son of a bitch, the Ruins Emperor. They massacred everyone and tried to seize our territory, causing chaos. Today we'll settle all the old and new grudges. Yi Gongming was an old general with unparalleled power. Although he had survived thousands of battles and lived until now, he had his own pride and ideals. He was always thinking of overturning the Ruins Emperor's palace to avenge the Ao Emperor and other ancient sages. In recent years he had led his clansmen to wreak havoc. He was still a treasure. "Let's do it." Ban Shan shouted and patted the storage bag at his waist. A palm-sized fire dragon cauldron flew out instantly. On the cauldron, there was a 9-clawed dragon roaring at the sky. Its eyes were vivid and divine aura was brewing on it. It could be called a superior grade Tao artifact. "Fuck you." Yi Gongming cursed loudly. The corners of his eyes twitched and tears seeped out of his demonic vertical pupils. Cold killing intent flickered in his eyes as he was exasperated. This fire dragon was one of the 5 heavenly divine generals of the ancient heavenly court, the heavenly fire dragon general. It had reached the soul formation realm and could control heavenly fire and lightning. It could refine stars and shatter moons. Its strength was not far from the void return realm. It was an important minister of the Ao Emperor and a close comrade of Yi Gongming. However, he was later ambushed and killed by the Ruins Emperor and the headmaster. Not only did he die tragically, he even used his dragon corpse and lifelong Tao fruits to refine a huge furnace for forging iron. How could Yi Gongming not be angry? The fire dragon cauldron expanded in the wind and became 1,000 feet tall. It supported the heavens and the earth as it smashed towards Yi Gongming. The cauldron fire dragon that was coiled densely around it suddenly swung out. Its body, which was tens of thousands of feet long, straightened in the air. The vast and surging laws of thunder and fire appeared on it. There were even fragments of the great Tao floating up and down as it charged towards Yi Gongming. "Kill. Heavenly fire dragon, your corpse can't be saved. Don't blame me." Yi Gongming's face turned ruthless. He grabbed Jiang Tian with one hand and waved the crocodile scissors with the other. He stepped on the air and the void shattered as a deep crater appeared under his feet. His body was like a huge cannonball as he dodged the cauldron and crashed towards the heavenly fire dragon. Bang, bang, bang. In the void, there were continuous explosions as if hundreds of nuclear weapons had exploded at the same time. Light was blazing and the earth shook. Mushroom clouds that looked like giant flowers rose into the sky. Yi Gongming's surging body crashed through the dragon's head all the way to its tail. The fire dragon was actually the corpse of an ancient god. It contained his life's worth of Tao. After decades of refinement and augmentation by pinnacle experts like the Ruins Emperor and the Headmaster, it contained immense power. It was surrounded by thunder and fire laws and contained fragments of great Tao. Once it exploded, it would be extremely terrifying. Mountains collapsed and tsunamis roared. The heavens trembled and the earth collapsed. An extremely domineering aura swept across the world. Chapter 1553. Despicable Person. In the end, Yi Gongming jumped in front of Ban Shan and opened up the scissors. It shone with cold light as it cut towards Ban Shan. At this moment, although Jiang Tian's body was broken and couldn't be repaired, he was still conscious and his consciousness wasn't damaged. He could clearly feel that Yi Gongming had relied on his body and vast vital energy to break through without using any laws or great Daos. He immediately understood. Yi Gongming's laws and great Daos couldn't perfectly resonate with this world and couldn't be used. All these years he could only rely on tempering his body and vital energy to increase his combat power. However, he had such terrifying combat power that he could break through the laws and great Daos. This old man is so ruthless. Ban Shan's eyes widened in disbelief as he retreated quickly. Luckily, he had already changed the trajectory of the furnace and was about to cause interference. Otherwise, he would have been cut in half by the scissors. Clang. As the cauldron smashed down, Yi Gongming's vertical pupils opened wide. He threw out a punch that shook the heavens. His valiance was unparalleled as he sent the cauldron flying 1,000 miles away, crashing through mountains and creating huge craters that were over 10 miles in radius. Rumble. Cracks appeared on the furnace and then it exploded uncontrollably. The mountain range within 100 miles was turned into dust. This was a Dao artifact. Its power was so great that it had the ability to destroy heaven and earth. At this moment, billowing airwaves swept across the entire mountain range. All living beings were drowned like ants and could only struggle bitterly. Jiang and I, Princess Tingyu, Zhou Xian, Qing Aojuan, Su Chongqing, and the others were all prostrating on the ground. Their bodies were trembling uncontrollably. Facing this monstrous ancient god aura, they didn't have the slightest strength to resist. Ban Shan wasn't feeling well either. The furnace and giant hammer were his life Dao artifacts and were closely connected to his god. At this moment the furnace was destroyed instantly. The god in his body roared and his original body also spat out a mouthful of blood. He was extremely miserable. You made me disrespect the remains of my comrade. You bullied me like this. Die. Yi Gongming glared at Ban Shan and shouted coldly. The giant crocodile scissors in his hand pointed at Ban Shan and rushed up at the speed of light, creating a space crack. No one would have thought that the ancient god Yi Gongming was able to unleash such a terrifying speed and battle prowess with only his vital essence and physical body. He did not use any nomological laws or great Daos, which was equivalent to his cultivation being forcefully suppressed to the golden elixir realm. In the blink of an eye, Yi Gongming traversed over 10 miles of the void and arrived in front of Ban Shan. He punched out with his left hand while the giant scissors in his right hand opened up, cutting through the void, shaking the heaven and earth and tearing the firmament apart. Ban Shan had nowhere to retreat. He swung his giant hammer and met the attack head-on. Clang. This giant hammer that had once shattered meteorites and forged asteroids was shattered by Yi Gongming's punch. Like a rubber ball, Ban Shan spun and flew backward for dozens of miles before he stabilized himself with great difficulty. Only the handle of the hammer remained in his hand, the web between his thumb and index finger had cracked open, the skin and flesh on his arm had split open, and his muscle fibers had been shaken into strands that fluttered in the air. His blood dyed the sky red, and the muscles on his entire body rippled indeterminately like water. Fuck your mother. I'm not even afraid of the headmaster or the ruins emperor, so why would I be afraid of a little brat like you? You're quite something since I didn't kill you with one punch. Yi Gongming's eyes were arrogant and wild. He was once a heavenly general of the heavenly court who fought against the heavens and the earth, and was extremely domineering. He was also the leader of the 7 great pirate aristocratic families who burned, killed and plundered. He was extremely vicious and had a fiery temper. He cursed and was about to catch up again. Yi Gongming, do you think we don't exist? Black and White roared. At that moment Ban Shan's life was already at stake. He did not hold back and took out his strongest Dao artifact. Chessboard Starry Sky, Inescapable Net. As the chessboard under him flew out, countless worlds appeared. Finally they rapidly abstracted into crisscrossing straight lines. There were 19 horizontal and vertical lines, a total of 361 intersecting points. In addition to the 4 corners, there were a total of 365 black dots. It was like an inescapable net that covered the sky and the sun. It passed through the clouds and suddenly enveloped them. Every black dot in the giant net formed by the chessboard contained a little bit of starlight. A little bit of starlight seemed to be a world. In the entire giant net, the laws of yin and yang, life and death, ingenuity, reality and illusion intertwined and changed. Its power was vast and contained endless laws. It was tough and indestructible and could destroy a phenomenal soul formation cultivator. It wanted to kill Yi Gongming and Jiang Tian. Fancy big but useless. Yi Gongming roared angrily. The crocodile scissors pointed at the sky and shattered the void. As it opened and closed, it instantly tore the giant net apart. However, there were still 7 or 8 threads that cut Yi Gongming's body. Immediately, his skin and flesh were torn open and his bones could be seen. Then the sword servant's sword of the great path also exploded in an instant. Yi Gongming was beaten up and flew up and down, his body was covered in blood. "Fuck you. I want revenge. I'll cut you into pieces." Yi Gongming shouted and rushed towards Black and White. "Senior, don't fight with them anymore. This kind of war of attrition is meaningless. After I break through, I'll kill them all in one go," Jiang Tian said with his immortal will. He respected Yi Gongming very much. Yi Gongming used to be a heavenly general in the ancient times who fought to protect the deity ground. In fact, Yi Gongming's lifespan was longer than Jiang Tian's in both his previous and current lives combined. In any case, he deserved to be called senior. "Right, I know. Don't you want the pearl orchid tree? I just sent the kids of the Ying family and the Tian family to steal it." Yi Gongming was fighting with the 3 soul formation cultivators, as he said with his immortal will. "I'm just fighting with them to fool them. They're right. I can't hold on for long with my old arms and legs." Right then Jiang Tian scanned with his immortal will and saw many thieves with the blood of the pangolin bloodline and the vole bloodline, and some strange-looking monsters were digging underground crazily around the pearl orchid tree, forming a large empty area. Yichun and Yinglong, the 2 of them, had left and returned. They were busy giving orders. Long Xingnan, Ghost Wolf, Bai Muxue and Sword Master Aotian had also entered. However, the pearl orchid tree wasn't uprooted. It kept sinking. Under the tree there was a giant teleport portal with a radius of 10 miles. The patterns and arrays on it were old and mottled. It should be an ancient relic, but it was quite powerful. It could teleport a few 100,000 miles or even to the outside world. All of a sudden, the entire pearl lily tree suddenly collapsed. Many pangolins and voles jumped in excitement. They lifted their arms and shoulders and dragged the pearl lily tree into the portal. There was a flash of light and the teleport portal, the pearl orchid tree and the monsters disappeared in a blink. Boom. After a loud noise, a pit with a radius of more than 10 miles appeared where the pearl orchid tree used to be. "Today I'm going to fight you to the death. Kill, kill, kill." At the same time, Yi Gongming performed all his power and attacked the 3 of them a dozen times in a row, forcing them back. "Guys, let's go. I'll take your heads when I'm free." All of a sudden he smirked and slapped his bag of holding, summoning a teleportation portal with spatial fluctuations. He stepped into it with Jiang Tian and instantly disappeared. Black and White, Ban Shan and the sword servant, who were covered in blood, rushed forward, but they couldn't find even a shadow. "That old bastard is so cunning." Ban Shan spat out a mouthful of bloody saliva. This mouthful of saliva was stained with divine blood. It smashed the rocks and rolled up huge waves. It blew the towering trees apart like grass. He cursed. "He destroyed my Daoist artifact. I'll find him someday and twist his head off." Even the pearl orchid tree was dug away by them. Black and White were extremely angry. They looked at the huge pit and the many intertwined tunnels with the corners of their eyes trembling. "It's the work of the Ying family of Dako. We were so focused on fighting Yi Gongming that we didn't realize that they stole it from under our noses. We're in trouble." The sword servant put away the 3-foot-long sword and put it back into the sheath. "The Dako family wants to join forces with Kong Techu. Once Kong Techu has the help of the Gate of Heaven left from the Age of Dao damage, he can freely travel through the worlds of the ruins of immortality. The defense line that we painstakingly set up will be useless. Moreover, the Dako family has a lot of cultivation resources. Once they are open to Kong Techu, how long will it take for him to break through to the nascent soul level?" Zhang and I, Princess Tingyu, Qing Aojuan, Zhao Shanhe and Su Chongqing also thought of this. Their scalps tingled and their hearts almost exploded. Chapter 1554. Jiang Tian seemed to have had an incomparably long dream. Everything in front of him was grotesque and variegated, constantly changing. Only when the faces of Zhao Xueqing and his daughter appeared, it was incomparably clear. Xueqing. Jiang Tian opened his eyes and saw a gentle girl in white standing in front of him. He grabbed her hand and didn't want to let go. Could it be that the Gate of Heaven influence was capable of teleporting between galaxies, instantly traversing a distance of 4 light-years and sending him to Earth? Senior Tai Chu Yu. Bai Mushu didn't expect Jiang Tian to grab her hand and pull her into his embrace as soon as he woke up. She blushed, but she couldn't break free from his embrace. Where are we? Upon hearing Bai Mushua's voice, Jiang Tian awkwardly let go of her hand and asked. Then he realized that it was just an illusion. After all, he had left Earth for 2 years and missed Zhao Xueqing and his family very much. After you entered the Gate of Sky influence, the space ripples were too strong and you passed out. We're now on planet Jin, a dimensional planet jointly occupied by the 7 great pirate families. Bai Mushue said softly. A dimensional planet. Jiang Tian was slightly moved. No wonder the 7 great pirate families were able to develop slowly. It turned out that they controlled a dimensional world and could avoid the pursuit of the Emperor of the Ruins. A dimensional world was different from an ordinary world. It had been folded with an ancient array, making it difficult for the outside world to detect and observe. The worlds in the ruins of deity also had dimensional barriers, but those dimensional barriers focused on defense and resisting the invasion of foreign enemies, not hiding, so they didn't have the ability to fold space. Those vast planets were visible to the naked eye in the night sky. On the other hand, the solar system such as planet Tianxing, Chia, Heavenly State and West Earth, were dimensional worlds and couldn't be observed at all. At the moment he felt very weak. His energy center and golden core were full of cracks and he almost fell to the foundation establishment level. Let's go out and take a look. Jiang Tian walked out of the door with Bai Mushue's help. There was no sunlight in this world. The sky was pitch black and not a single blade of grass grew. There were not many living creatures and it was desolate and lonely. Judging from the curve of the horizon, it was not big. It was about the same size as the moon. Inside the craters, metal and crystal bases of different sizes had been built. They were tall and majestic, covered in ancient rune arrays and Daoist patterns that were glittering coldly. Starry sky battleships and war chariots were docked around the base. They were mottled with copper rust and looked ancient. Large artifacts were installed on them. Jiang Tian was in a base, but there were several nascent soul heavenly lords guarding the base with large Dharma artifacts. From the looks of it, it was not to protect Jiang Tian, but to prevent Jiang Tian from escaping. Where is the Pearl Perilla tree? Jiang Tian asked. We've been here for 3 days. A hint of bitterness appeared on Bai Mushue's pretty face. On the 2nd day, the lords of the 7 great pirate clans came one after another and held a meeting to discuss the matter. I heard from Yi Chun and Ying Long that they had a disagreement. Senior Ghost Wolf and Fairy Xingnan are confined in different bases. Jiang Tian snorted and a hint of coldness appeared in his eyes. No team could be 100% united. The 7 great pirate clans were also divided into several forces. The Yi family and the Ying family might support him, but the other 5 families might not. They all had their own agendas and standpoints. The so-called confinement was obviously confinement and imprisonment. Bai Mushue was just afraid that he would be infuriated and fight with them, so she put it in a more subtle way. Senior, you haven't recovered yet. You should. Bai Mushue said with a worried face. Don't worry. I won't be reckless. Jiang Tian nodded. The place where Jiang Tian was located was also a secluded, funnel-shaped mountain range. It was a place where earth veins gathered and could gather astral power. It was the perfect place for Jiang Tian to cultivate in secluded cultivation and recover from his injuries. In a base not far from the place where Jiang Tian was in seclusion, several leaders of the great Ko family were having a battle of words, discussing how to deal with Jiang Tian. Kong Teichu's Dantian and Golden Core are both damaged and his body is broken. He's already disabled. What's the point of saving him? He'll only cause trouble. A tall middle-aged man with a domineering aura said with disdain. He had the word king on his forehead and his eyes were fierce. He was already at the 1st level of the soul formation realm and was in his prime. His power was not much weaker than Yi Gongming's. He had an extraordinary background. He was the descendant of the mountain tiger god, one of the divine generals of the heavenly court. He was the lord of the third great pirate clan and his name was Tu Fei. He was a peerless fierce man who had mastered the 9 moves of the tiger god. His Dharma laws had been condensed into fragments of the Grand Tao and he was invincible. He didn't like to steal treasures. Instead he liked to use large Dharma artifacts to blow up the residences of the royal families and nobles of the ruins of immortality. Everywhere he went there would be nothing left. In fact, the lords of the 7 great pirate clans had all reached the soul formation realm and their power was extraordinary. Fei he was injured under the joint attack of the sword servant, Ban Shan and Black and White, 3 veteran soul formation realm cultivators. If you were in his position you might not be able to escape alive. Yi Gongming had already turned into his human form. He was a skinny and ugly little old man, but he was still majestic and had the highest seniority. He sat at the top. This kid is quite powerful. Tu Fei's expression changed slightly and he clicked his tongue. His most valiant battle record was that he had killed a divine general and was a half-step soul formation realm cultivator, which he had always been proud of. But facing 3 soul formation realm cultivators like Ban Shan, to be honest, he was also a fool and didn't have much confidence. Old master, you're too loyal. It's undeniable that Kong Teichu is indeed powerful. But that was in the past. Now he's disabled. Are you still thinking that he can return to his peak? Another lord of the great pirate clans spoke. This person was hanging upside down from the beam. His thick and muscular body was entangled with his arms crossed in front of his chest. There was a pair of black wings on his back and his face was very ugly. His teeth were white and his small eyes were black like mung beans. But his power was extraordinary and he didn't use any divine arts. The sound waves from his mouth caused the surrounding space to fluctuate abnormally violently, as if it could break through space at any time. Beside him, there were 2 other great pirates who looked almost identical to him. They were twins. He's not a woman, we can't use him to reproduce. Why save him? It's a waste of treasures. The younger brother hugged his shoulders and snorted. He's a man with thick skin. He won't taste good even if he's roasted. The elder brother who spoke earlier snorted. Even if Jiang Tian was here he would be slightly moved. These 2 black bats were a primeval mutant, a very terrifying mutant. There was no demonic aura on them anymore. Instead it was replaced by a godlike aura. They should be the descendants of the gods and devils. In fact, they were indeed the descendants of the heavenly bat divine general, one of the heavenly divine generals of the ancient heavenly courts. According to ancient records, the heavenly bat divine general wasn't a native of the deity ground, but an alien race from outer space. In the ancient celestial land, the spiritual energy was surging, and the vitality was vast. All kinds of thousands of years old spiritual herbs could be found everywhere. In the deep mountains and great lakes, there were spiritual springs gushing out, and they were brilliant cultivation stars. There were giants with mountains and moons on their shoulders, beasts with stars above their heads and ancient gods who could trample the world. There were also many alien races that came to Earth to settle down. The ancient heavenly courts at that time accepted all kinds of people and gave them important tasks as long as they were talented. The heavenly bat divine general was one of them. He was also loyal to the Qing Emperor and the Ao Emperor. He had made great contributions in the ancient times and during the era of interstellar wanderings, and died on the battlefield during the Age of Tao damage. These 2 bats were the 5th generation of the heavenly bat divine general. One was called Fu Huiren and the other was Fu Heishui. Many of the heavenly bat divine general's direct descendants had died in the Age of Tao damage. Up until now, there were only 2 brothers left of this kind of heavenly bat bloodline, and both of them were male. Reproduction had become a big problem. Fu Huiren and his brother were famous among the great Ko clans for their speed. Their sound wave attacks weren't bad either. Furthermore, they were proficient in concealment and disguise. What they liked to do the most was to kidnap the holy maidens of the heavenly abodes, the daughters of the nobles, and even the concubines and queens of the dynasties of the ruins of immortality from the layers of restrictive spells in their mansions and courtyards, and then force them to have sex with them, hoping to leave behind their bloodline seeds. However, the results would often leave them greatly disappointed. They would immediately turn hostile and demand a large amount of ransom, demanding an exorbitant price. If the hostage wasn't paid, they would kill the hostage and eat her in front of everyone. Therefore, the Fu brothers were despicable and cruel. They were known as the top kidnappers and perverts in the ruins of immortality. They were the most wanted criminals in the Emperor Palace. Chapter 1555. Kong Taichu is too reckless and we don't agree with his strategy. We're using guerrilla tactics and he's using defensive tactics. We're not on the same page. Another great co-family head said. Yun Zhongzi. He was also a descendant of the heavenly court's monster god and had the white crane bloodline. He was handsome, wearing a white feather robe and a star crown. He held a crane beak in his hand and carried a long sword with a white scabbard on his back. If Kong Taichu can really recover, he'll be as powerful as us. Who's going to be the boss if we work together? Who's going to keep their word? Who's going to get the territory? This old man was dressed like an old farmer. He wore a shabby jacket made of coarse cloth, revealing his bronze-colored chest and lumps of meat. He was smoking a pipe with a jasper pole and said with a chuckle, Nyo Duotian, a grand fae with the divine bull bloodline. His ancestor was in charge of countless spirit fields and spirit medicine gardens in the heavenly court. He was an earth divine general and also the heavenly court's minister of agriculture. Until now he had been reduced to a bandit. He occupied a mountain and called himself king. He often robbed people, but he still liked to farm. He would immediately raise the temples, clear the palaces, renovate the land and plant the seeds. It was said that he also controlled an unknown small world, which was filled with ancient herbs and spirit plants. Old bull, don't be too selfish. If Kong Taichu can really lead us to the ruins of deities, we'll have billions of territories. Do you think we'll need your land? Yi Gongming frowned. I think we shouldn't work with Kong Taichu. We'll send him away when he recovers. Zhou Xian said coldly. There's nothing to say. I think he might not be from Earth but from deep in space. He's just pretending to be a descendant of the deity ground. We all know that Earth was surrounded by the deity trap array and it's a dead planet. How can he have such a powerful inheritance? This was a bandit who was on the same level as Yi Gongming. Even though he was a junior, he had the blood of the Azure Dragon, the descendant of Ao Huang. Although they both had the Flood Dragon bloodline, he was much stronger than the Dragon Gate's realm lord Ao Feng. Just the fact that he had established the Flood Dragon Water Palace in the fallen Immortal Sea region above the ruins of immortality and had survived hundreds of attacks from the ruins Emperor's Palace for 1,000 years without collapsing meant that his strength and knowledge were 10 or 100 times greater than Ao Feng's. What he said was not without reason. In fact, this was also the reason why they imprisoned Jiang Tian, Ghost Wolf and the others. They couldn't figure out Jiang Tian's background. They believed that if Jiang Tian came from the solar system, he would not have such a powerful cultivation. He needed to treat it with caution. At this moment, Ying Long took a step forward and said, Seniors, Kong Taichu is indeed from ancient Earth. He has seen my ancestor Ying Ziyu. By the side, Ying Long's father Ying Shan nodded. My son has always been honest. I can testify on this matter. Most of the bandits were unruly and rebellious, unwilling to be under Jiang Tian. For a time, everyone was arguing and discussing endlessly, unable to reach a consensus. Then Yi Gongming was annoyed and he said coldly, Looks like other than the Yi family and the Ying family, no one agrees to work with Kong Taichu. How about this? We'll give the pearl tree to him. The Yi family and the Ying family stole it. It has nothing to do with you. Do you have any objections? We have no objections. Many of the bandits weren't unreasonable. They all nodded. You don't have the right to decide whether to work with Kong Taichu or not. He might not even like us. Yi Gongming grunted. He had observed the battle between Jiang Tian and the 3 soul formation cultivators when he was hiding in the Gate of Sky Bearing. To be honest, Jiang Tian was only slightly weaker. He even suspected that even if he didn't do anything, Jiang Tian would be able to save himself and even defeat them. However, he would have to pay a certain price. Bah! What's so great about him? I'll kick him out of the sky with my hooves. Niu Duotan chuckled and said proudly. It's unreasonable for us to imprison his disciples. Yi Gongming ignored Niu Duotian and said again, Once Jiang Taichu recovers to his peak, we'll let him go whether he stays or leaves. Let's listen to his opinion. What if he wants to stay? Let him be the 8th son and be my younger brother. Niu Duon laughed out loud, puffing out 2 puffs of smoke from his thick nostrils. Let's have a competition. Yi Gongming glanced around and smiled. Even though our 7 great pirate clans are of the same lineage, we've been fighting for ourselves all these years like a tray of loose sand. Let's fight. Whoever wins will be publicly elected as the leader of the 7 great pirate clans. We don't need the title of the 7 families. We'll call them the Divine Army of the Heavenly Court. The name of a bandit doesn't sound good. Yi Gongming's eyes glittered coldly and he said cunningly, "Do you have the guts?" "Great. I've always wanted to have a competition with you." Tu Fei grinded his teeth as he scanned the crowd with a smile. "Before the competition we'll kidnap a few princesses and saintesses to reproduce. Otherwise, if anything happens to them, we won't let our parents down." Fu Huairan and Tu Fei looked at each other and said secretly, "Hehe, if I win, all your territories will belong to me. Won't there be billions of fertile lands?" Niu Duotan rubbed his hands excitedly. "You're too weak. I'm afraid that I'll kill you with one punch." The Green Dragon King shook his body and the dragon scales on his body swayed. He looked at them with disdain. "After all, we're a family. Let's stop here. In fact, we'll know each other's strength after a slight collision." Yi Gongming smiled and said, "By then Kong Teichu will convince you." After the meeting, Yi Gongming immediately brought Yi Chun, Ying Long and Ying Shan to visit Jiang Tian. "Taichu, you've recovered well." The moment he saw Jiang Tian, Yi Gongming was shocked. A time array plate hung down with tens of thousands of silk ribbons, enveloping Jiang Tian. A 30-meter-long divine plate bloomed behind Jiang Tian's back. A 1,000-meter-long Taotai stood in the ring-shaped mountain, swallowing the star energy in the universe. Thousands of mending heavens pills floated around. They exploded one after another, turning into pure medicinal energy to repair Jiang Tian's damaged dantian. The terrifying true fire of the sun and the vast star energy were all swallowed by the Taotai. The 30-meter-long divine plate gradually solidified and was even brighter than before. Terrifying. He actually recovered from an unrecoverable injury in one day. Ying Shan, Ying Long and Yi Chun were also shocked. The corners of their eyes twitched. Jiang Tian could actually swallow the star energy in the universe to increase his cultivation. This was too heaven-defying. Only deity transformation experts could do this. In fact, they had overestimated Jiang Tian. Jiang Tian indeed knew such a cultivation art, but it was too slow. The stars and moonlight weren't enough to support Jiang Tian's rapid recovery. He had killed many nascent soul cultivators and even divine emperors along the way in the North Sea and Penglai world. Jiang Tian didn't waste their blood, nascent souls and god fragments. He stored them in the sky-swallowing demonic gourd. Jiang Tian's first step was to absorb and refine those energies. The star energy was just a supplement. "Senior Gongming, everyone, thank you for your help." Jiang Tian suddenly opened his eyes. He put the 30-meter-long divine plate back into his dantian and sent the time array plate into the sky-swallowing demonic gourd. He then stood up and thanked them. "Taichu, you're fighting to protect Earth while we're fighting to restore the ancient heavenly court and avenge our ancestors. However, we're all fighting to kill the Ruins Emperor and overturn the Ruins Emperor's palace. Our goal is the same." Yi Gongming held Jiang Tian's hand affectionately and sat down on a cold meteorite. He smiled and said, "To be honest, this old man admires you a lot. All these years we've never built a base, nor have we successfully occupied any world. We're just scattered soldiers, ambushing and destroying everywhere. But you've completely occupied the Hylon worlds in just 6 months. It's not easy. There's nothing I can do about it." Jiang Tian smiled wryly and said, "The Ruins Emperor wants to conquer the solar system. The fastest way is to use the world-whole teleportation arrays in these worlds. I have to build an iron fortress to stop them." Indeed. The ancient Earth's planet destruction is said to be a great opportunity for immortal ascension. It's fatally attractive to the ruins of immortality. Yi Gongming said. Jiang Tian nodded. After the Spirit Qi revival, Earth developed in the direction of a bright cultivation planet and could even become a cultivation sacred ground. Besides, the ruins of immortality also seems to be facing a world-ending crisis. They have to find a new place to live, and that place is Earth. Yi Gongming added. World-ending crisis? What's that? Jiang Tian was slightly moved and confused. Chapter 1556. The old man doesn't know the details either. I'm afraid only Sky River Star Lord and Sky Palace know the details, but it's true. Yi Gongming smiled. He talked about some evidence. They were all inferences, but this inference was not without foundation. There was a lot of evidence to support it. By the way, I once saw an interstellar dust belt on the way to Alpha Centauri. It was passed by someone. Zhang Tian frowned and asked, "That dust belt?" The dust belt is located between Alpha Centauri and the solar system. It is 3 light-years away from Earth and 1 light-year away from Alpha Centauri. And in the dust belt, there are thousands of neatly arranged hollow traces. They are like sharp swords pointing in the direction of Earth. With the current human technology, the most advanced radio telescopes could not capture the interstellar spaceships that were like dust compared to the stars. But this dust belt proved that intelligent life was passing through it and pointing to Earth. It was like leaving a trail of footprints in the vast snow. In the dust belt there were traces left by intelligent life. It had always been a shadow in Zhang Tian's heart. This proved that intelligent life was rushing to Earth. Moreover, the level of this civilization was very high. It was very likely that Earth would face a disaster. It was equivalent to when Zhang Tian was on an expedition and his backyard was on fire. He had asked many people about this, such as Ghost Wolf, Long Xingnan, and so on. He had even searched the souls of many people like Prince Spring Rain and Emperor Hanshi. However, there was no valid information. As far as I know, the ruins of immortality do not have such a level of flying Dharma artifact. It has not reached the level of traveling between different galaxies. Can only be limited to the Alpha Centauri. Yi Gongming frowned and pondered for a while. Otherwise, they would not have needed to spend so much effort to control the teleportation array of the dimensional hole and use it to travel to Earth. Perhaps, it's a trace left behind from the ancient mythological era. In ancient times, many extraterrestrial civilizations descended on Earth and the deity ground. That dust belt and the traces in it might have been formed in ancient times? Zhang Tian frowned and said nothing. He felt uneasy. The old man knows that you have left Earth for some time without any news. You must be missing your family and worried about the fate of Earth. Yi Gongming said, However, there is no return. However, there is no turning back. My young friend, you are here to slay the Ruins Emperor. Don't forget your original intentions. If the Ruins Emperor were to kill you, occupy the Dragon Gate world and reconstruct the World Cave teleportation array, he would definitely attack Earth immediately. Yes. Thank you for your guidance, Senior. This junior understands. A resolute look appeared on Zhang Tian's face. When the old man heard that you wanted to refine the laws of wood, he brought the pearly pearl tree over. Other than that, he also brought many wood-type materials, great herbs and spirit herbs that our Ying clan and the Hu clan had accumulated over thousands of years. I hope you can make a breakthrough soon. Yi Gongming smiled. He made a hand seal. Immediately, the pearl orchid tree that was over 3,000 meters tall emerged from the storage bag and slowly landed on the ground. In addition, there were also many great herbs and spiritual plants of the wood element piled up in the ring-shaped mountain like a sea of smoke, occupying an area of 100 meters in radius. Zhang Tian could use them as he wished. Senior, these are too valuable. Zhang Tian scanned with his divine sense and was slightly moved. Silver leaf grass, dragon bone wisteria, green wood demon core, jade immortal peach tree. Those wood-type heavenly treasures were naturally nothing in the central galaxy, but they were priceless in the ruins of deity as they contained extremely dense and pure wood-type spirit chi. Some of them were even thousands of years old and were stained with the blood of soul formation cultivators. Apparently, they came from the ancient heavenly courts and had been passed down through countless battles. The ancient saints had paid the price of their lives to preserve them. There were very few of them left in the world and they were extremely precious. Brother Jiang, the 7 pirate clans are fighting for themselves like scattered soldiers. In the old man's opinion, it would be difficult for them to complete the task of restoring the ancient heavenly courts even after a few hundred or 1,000 years. Yi Gongming looked dejected as he lamented, the old man is old. He's only a soul formation cultivator. Being able to live to this age is already the limit of the old man's life. The only reason he could last until now was because the old man had gone through a few thousand years of blood coagulation. Otherwise he would have died long ago. There's not much time left for the old man. What the old man can do is to gather the 7 groups and cause some trouble for the Ruins Emperor. However, the responsibility of uniting the roots of the ancient heavenly courts and overturning the Ruins Emperor's throne will be left to you. After you break through, they'll come and challenge you. They're tough, so don't hold back. Beat them until they're convinced. Yi Gongming said with a hopeful smile. Don't worry, Senior. I'll make sure they're convinced. Zhang Tian said with a faint smile. Yi Gongming and the others didn't disturb Jiang Tian for too long. They immediately left and let Jiang Tian cultivate in seclusion. Boom! Jiang Tian was startled and the 30-foot divine will behind him shone brightly. The true seal representing the Taotia's essence returning suddenly lit up and let out a dazzling light. The Taotai behemoth formed by the essence returning law kept expanding until it was the size of a small mountain. It opened its mouth and swallowed the pearl tree. The pearl tree looked like it was made of jade. Its branches were crystal clear and its leaves shone with a precious glow. Clouds rose as auspicious colors and rays bloomed. It was extremely mystical. It was a divine tree that had grown in the Penglai world 10,000 years ago. It was formed from the crystallization of abundant and condensed wood elemental spirit qi. A few leaves and branches were enough to help a golden core advance to the nascent soul realm. Back then, Sword Venerable Ao Tian had used an insignificant leaf to reach the limit of sublimation and successfully break through the nascent soul realm. Boom! Under the Taotia's essence returning law, the pearl tree's branches and leaves melted bit by bit, turning into strands of spirit qi that poured into the whirling divine tree, turning into the corresponding quintessential essence and constantly strengthening it. In the end, Jiang Tian took out the time array disc and enveloped his body with the power of time acceleration to speed up the absorption and refinement. As the pearly pearl tree was refined, the shadow of the galaxy left behind by the laws of the dancing divine tree on the divine disc continued to solidify. When its quantity reached the extreme, it leaped in the direction of a qualitative change. Gradually, the whirling divine tree was completely formed by Dharma runes and a wood elemental true seal was formed. The corresponding golden core was about to form a nascent soul. A few days later, a cracking sound was heard. In the sky, the giant pearl tree that had completely darkened turned into powder and scattered in the air. Even the wood elemental spirit treasures that Yi Gongming had given him disappeared in a blink. At this moment, not only had his injuries completely healed, but his golden core had also improved by one step. The galaxy representing the wood elemental golden core had no vitality and the stars were firmly embedded together like rivets, forming a green tree that was extremely solid. It was the true seal of the whirling divine tree. Jiang Tian's eyes glittered and he checked his dantian with his immortal will. A glint of joy appeared on his face. He stood up and said, "Good. Another nascent soul is formed. The wood elemental true seal has formed and the divine body has reached the perfected level. Ah Kongteichu, you've recovered. The 7 pirate families are here to meet you." A long howl was heard. Numerous overbearing figures shot over from afar like arrows. They stood on the ring-shaped mountain, and their bodies were either surrounded by black water, spatial fluctuations, silver light flickering, black water overflowing into the heavens or blood energy surging. Every single one of them had an extraordinary bearing, and there were deities rumbling and trembling within their bodies. They looked down at Jiang Tian with disdain, their faces full of excitement and eagerness. They were precisely the lords of the 7 great pirate families. "You want to spar with me, right?" Jiang Tian flicked his sleeves and rose to the sky. He stood with his hands behind his back and smiled. "That's right. You've all reached the soul formation level. I can beat you up." "Kid, you're really arrogant. Let's fight." Niu Duotian snickered and took a step forward, crossing 10 miles. The lumps on his body wriggled like countless live mice and he directly threw a punch. Chapter 1557. Plow the courtyard and sweep the acupoints. As he punched out, the ox god in his body roared furiously. He didn't need to raise his whip to kick his hooves. Wherever his fist passed, the ground cracked and rocks rolled. A 1,000-foot-long ravine suddenly split open and appeared. This dimension world was an ancient land. There were ancient runes and restrictions in the world that suppressed all essence qi and dharma power. It was extremely stable, just like cement with countless special steel bars. There were fist-sized rocks everywhere and they were as heavy as a millstone in the outside world. So, even though this dimension world was small, its gravity was even stronger than that of the Penglai world. If this punch was launched in the outside world, it would have destroyed at least 100 miles. Wherever the fist passed, hundreds of demonic bulls of law charged out, charging straight at Jiang Tian. Their iron hooves tore through the void and their horns destroyed everything. One bull of law could easily kill a nascent soul cultivator, and some of them were formed by the fragments of the Grand Tao, so they were even more powerful and could severely injure a soul formation cultivator. Besides, there were hundreds of them, so their power was terrifying. Gung Metal Fist. Zhang Tian's black hair fluttered without wind and his divine body was glittering. He threw a punch at the Bulls of Law. Boom. After a series of explosions, the Bulls of Law exploded one after another under the attack of the Law of Gung Metal. Clang. In the end, their fists collided. Their clothes and hair fluttered behind them like flags. The blood-colored divine Bull Dao mark and the golden Gung Metal Law seethed and intertwined around the fist, colliding and obliterating each other, exploding out huge colorful spatial cracks, magnificent but also incomparably dangerous. The two were in a temporary stalemate. All of a sudden, the golden rule of Gingjin transformed into thin swords that were as thin as ox hair and swimming fish. They swam along Niu Duotian's fists and arms and toward his chest. They were densely packed and innumerable. In an instant, they pierced through the divine treasures and locked onto the god, ready to strike at any moment. Niu Duotian felt extremely uncomfortable, as if his body would crack in the next second. His face turned pale. Stop. I surrender. How can there be such a terrifying law of metal? The next moment, Zhang Tian pulled back his fist. But Niu Duotian had already been sent flying 10 miles away like a kite with a broken string, falling into another crater. This kid is powerful. It's clearly a law, but it actually has the power of the great Tao. The corners of Tu Fei's eyes twitched, and so did the king character tattooed on his forehead. A ferocious glint shot out from his eyes. But in terms of sound wave attacks, he might not be able to defeat me. Fu Huiren snorted coldly as he hung upside down on the golden hook. We can also escape into space and are proficient in hiding. You won't be able to find us. Brother, why don't we go first? Fu Heishui was also eager to give it a try. Let me go first. After killing him, I'll sell his corpse to you two brothers. You can roast it and eat it. Yun Zhongzi shouted. This old man will go first. He has a lot of health, so I'll wear him down first. There was no water vapor in this place and the laws were incomplete. Miley water laws and Great Tao cannot be fully unleashed. The Green Dragon King also took a step forward, his battle intent surging. His meaning was self-evident. He didn't have the confidence to crush Zhang Tian by himself. He only wanted to exhaust him as much as possible so that his old friends could gain the upper hand. Why don't you all come at me together? I'm in a hurry. Zhang Tian snickered with arrogance in his eyes. Yi Gongming's forehead was covered in sweat. He knew Zhang Tian was powerful, but it was also dangerous for him to fight against a dozen soul formation cultivators at the same time. He's out of his mind. There are so many soul formation cultivators here, but he's not afraid at all. The soul formation cultivators of the Great Ko family were enraged. Fu Huiren was so angry that his face turned red. He jumped up and down and screamed as if he had been greatly insulted. Let's fulfill his wish. The Green Dragon King shouted. He stepped forward and the Li water surrounded him, forming Dharma laws. Countless dragons around him roared and dashed towards Zhang Tian. Arrogant. Let him know how powerful we are. Yun Zhongzi raised his eyebrows and his eyes glittered. The deity in his body roared and he turned into a beam of sword aura, heading towards Zhang Tian. This guy has a special bloodline. Let's kill him and roast him. He'll be very nutritious. Fu Huiren flapped his wings and screamed. Sound waves rolled out, breaking the space and heading towards Zhang Tian. Isn't that right? Sprinkle some salt and pepper. I want it medium well. A man's meat might be old, but it's chewier. Heishui Fu's figure flashed as he entered the void. In the next moment, a crack appeared behind Zhang Tian's back. Tu Fei was also enraged. He took out a tiger-tailed whip and sneered, Kong Teichu, we're not bullying you with numbers. You asked for it. This was a shocking scene. Other than Yi Gongming and Ying Shan, the other soul formation cultivators of the 7 great bandits all attacked. Although they knew that this was a competition and would not really kill, the Dharma laws and Dharma laws that were unleashed were not fake. They were extremely powerful. The sky of the entire small world trembled and the earth trembled. Many bases made rustling noises as if they were about to collapse. Honglong. Tu Fei moved later but arrived first. He had comprehended the 9 stances of the tiger god to the extreme. When he punched out, clumps of Dharma laws formed into a tiger, forming a string of tiger shadows that contained Dharma fragments. White tiger biting the sun, evil tiger leaving the cave, crossing the mountains, entering the cave to hunt, fierce tiger steals the heart. He attacked Zhang Tian crazily. You think you can hurt me with this? Difficult. Zhang Tian squinted his eyes. He waved his finger and the vermilion bird heavenly saber swept out. It was as fast as lightning and struck the tiger shadows. Heavenly fire prairie burning. Hong. The 9 tigers formed of Dharma laws were destroyed by the true fire. Tu Fei was sent flying backwards. He knocked a soul formation cultivator behind him away as well. The two crashed through the mountain walls of the ring-shaped mountain. With a series of ping 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 sounds, they destroyed 7 or 8 ring-shaped mountains and bases. Finally, a mushroom cloud rose from a place dozens of kilometers away. It was unknown what it crashed into before it stopped. Before the others could come back to their senses, Zhang Tian took a step forward and used the Kun Ping to come to Fu Huiren's back. Fu Huiren reacted quickly. He opened his mouth and screamed. A strange sound wave blasted out of the alternate dimension. Half of his body was already inside. Zhang Tian used the Kun Ping and waved his finger. Void-shattering saber. The alternate dimension cracked open. Fu Huiren was shaken out of the alternate dimension. He saw a thunder mantis roaring and spewing lightning. Thunderbolts that looked like giant dragons attacked him. He screamed and showed the heavenly bat deity. His body suddenly grew to 100 feet tall. He flapped his wings and backed off quickly. At the same time he protected his body with his wings like a shield. The thunder dragon flashed and his wings cracked. The thunderbolt struck his divine treasure deity. Terrifying cracks appeared on his body. His fur was immediately burnt and emitted a strong fragrance. It was only a little bit worse than the smell of barbecued meat. "Brother, are you okay?" Fu Heishui flew to the sky and caught him with his arms. His eyes were filled with concern. All of a sudden he couldn't help but drool. His eyes were filled with greed as he murmured, "This is considered medium well. It smells so good." Fu Huiren had just woken up. He was so angry that he almost fainted again. He roared, "You want to eat me? Go and beat him up." "All right." Fu Heishui threw him to the ground, causing his brother to squeak in pain. Fu Heishui once again charged into the battle. Zhang Tian entered the crowd of semi-god realm warriors of Great Ko family. His Kun Peng was extremely fast and his body was like an illusion. Everyone was shocked as they felt that Zhang Tian was going to attack them. They had no choice but to charge forward. Bang bang bang. A series of explosions rang out. The Green Dragon King's Li Shui was frozen by the sea-calming ice god. He was punched hundreds of meters away by Zhang Tian and smashed into Niu Duotian who had just rushed over. Yun Zhongzi's divine sword skill was shattered by Zhang Tian's punch using the law of Earth Dragon. He crashed into Fu Heishui and everyone was in a mess. Yi Gongming backed off quickly, fearing that he would be caught in the chaos. The ground cracked and the entire crater and the base were smashed into pieces by the semi-god realm warriors. The broken crater and the broken walls floated up under the influence of the many laws of divine arts. The semi-god realm warriors were jumping among the rocks in midair. Sometimes they were upside down, 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 sometimes they were on the rocks and sometimes they were like beasts. You are using the weapon formula of the 9 great heavenly arts of the Ruins Emperor. How did you learn it? A semi-god realm Great Ko roared furiously. Hundreds of flying swords were snatched by Zhang Tian and stabbed into his divine treasure deity. He fell upside down. Bastard. How do you know how to set up formations? These scattered rocks have actually formed a formation to lock down the space. What sword skill is this? Bang bang bang, figures fell one after another. The broken crater and the broken pieces of the base flew higher and higher. On the top of the base, Zhang Tian and Yun Zhongzi were crossing each other. He used another law of Ice God to seal Yun Zhongzi's endless divine arts. He turned around and used Heaven Flipping Hand to strike Yun Zhongzi, causing him to vomit blood and fall to the ground. The roof of the base cracked open silently. Fu Heishui sneered sinisterly as he sneaked over. What greeted him was Zhang Tian's great divine art. Crystal sand Milky Way hanging above the blue sky. Behind Zhang Tian's back the thick earth dragon emerged and roared. Thousands of Milky Way crystal sand descended from the sky along with his horrifying palm power, shattering Fu Heishui's space teleportation spell. Along with the Milky Way, Fu Heishui was slapped onto the ground. Boom. Countless rocks and broken walls fell from the sky. The ground trembled violently. The place where the semi-god realm Great Ko landed formed a huge palm print with a radius of 3 to 5 acres. You old scoundrel, you can't even withstand a single blow. Jiang Tian landed on the ground. He shook his clothes and smiled at the dumbfounded Yi Gongming. Senior, let's have a chat at your place. What should we name our army in the future? Chapter 1558. The base of the Hu family. Jiang Tian looked around and found that it was even shabbier than the other bases. There weren't many Dharma treasures or treasures. Yi Gongming must have given away a lot of ancient treasures to maintain the unity of the 7 pirate families. Although the 7 pirate families all came from the same branch of the ancient heavenly courts, they had different ancestors after all. After 10,000 years, they all had their own ideas and interests. Some kidnap, some dig up graves, some steal, some burn and kill, some plunder and some plunder. If Yi Gongming hadn't mediated, they might have fought among themselves. Jiang Tian and Yi Gongming chatted for a while. The brothers of the Fu family, Tu Fei Yun Zhongzi Niu Duotian and the Green Dragon King groaned and screamed as they walked into the base of the Hu family. However, Jiang Tian had only slightly injured his body and divine treasures. He didn't move at all and would recover in a few days after taking some treasure medicines. Congratulations, Master. The divine plate rotated again and formed the true seal of the law of wood. You've become even more powerful. You defeated the 7 pirate families in one battle. Nice win. Ghost Wolf, Long Xingnan by Muxue and Sword Master Outyan also came to greet Jiang Tian. They were quite happy. Do you still want to fight? Jiang Tian slightly nodded, glanced at the bandits and asked leisurely. If it weren't for the fact that we came from afar and our cultivation arts aren't compatible with the laws of heaven and earth, I might not have lost to you. Tu Fei was still stubborn, but his slightly trembling hands revealed his nervousness and fear at this moment. In fact, although he didn't want to admit it, he was already convinced in his heart. From the beginning to the end, Jiang Tian had only performed Dharma laws in true essence, but he had been beaten by a bunch of soul formation cultivators. No matter how one looked at it, Jiang Tian was more powerful than them. Afei, do you know that some of them reached the nascent soul level after I modified their cultivation arts in Penglai and made them compatible with the laws of heaven and earth? Jiang Tian smiled and said. I've heard about it. Is that true? Tu Fei stepped forward and bowed deeply. He winked and said, I wonder if the 9 moves of the tiger god can be fixed and perfected? Sure. Jiang Tian smiled faintly and immediately sent a message through divine sense. Tu Fei tried to comprehend it carefully and he was suddenly enlightened. With a slight activation, the tiger deity in his body roared and resonated with the great Tao. Its power was more than 3 times stronger than before and he couldn't help but applaud. Wonderful, wonderful. Fellow Daoist Taichu is truly a peerless heavenly being. After your modification, the power of the 9 stances of the tiger god has been multiplied. This lowly one has the confidence to twist the ruins emperor's head off and kick it like a ball. Senior, you seem to lack water-type materials to condense your laws. This lowly one has some. If Senior takes a fancy to them, you can use them as you wish. Everyone's hearts jumped, and the Green Dubbing King even walked forward and bowed respectfully as if he was seeing a god. Well said, well said. From now on we are good brothers. Jiang Tian smiled. Niu Duotian was also full of admiration for Jiang Tian. He smiled and said, Actually, I agree with fellow Daoist Taichu's positional warfare very much. We naturally can't give up so easily and give it to the Ruins Emperor. We need to establish an imperial court and open up fertile land. The ancestral teachings say that with food in hand, there is no need to panic. This lowly one supports fellow Daoist Taichu to be the leader of the bandits. Senior Taichu's sword Dao and void-tearing saber art. This lowly one's cultivation technique also requires your guidance and perfection. Yun Zhongzi said politely. Jiang Tian looked at the indignant Fu Huiran brothers and said, Fellow Daoists, your bloodlines are special. You seem to be from outside the realm. Of course. We are from the heavenly bat god lineage from outside the realm. Fu Huiran's face was filled with pride, but his face immediately wrinkled like a dried orange. He cried, Our ancestors accompanied Ao Emperor in his conquest of the universe. However, for 10,000 years, our race has been constantly pursued. In our generation we are the only two left in our race. Jiang Tian was stunned. After a moment he said worriedly, I didn't expect the two of you to be the descendants of a large race from outside the realm. However, you are brothers and both of you are male. Who will continue your lineage after you die of old age? Stop talking. The two bats said in unison. Once the two of you die, your lineage will become extinct. Jiang Tian gloated. I told you to stop talking. Fu Huairan was so angry that his hands trembled. He wanted to roast Jiang Tian and eat him, but he knew helplessly that he was no match for Jiang Tian. Brother, I almost died just now. I'm very worried. Let's go to the ruins of immortality and kidnap a few princesses and infanta to give birth to our children. Fu Heishui's face was covered in tears as he said with a trembling voice. Ah, don't be so anxious. Jiang Tian laughed and said leisurely, I came from the ruins of immortality. Although I'm from Earth, I'm actually reincarnated. I've been to the central galaxy in my previous life. To tell you the truth, the heavenly bat clan is innumerable there. The female bats have sharp fangs in their mouths and they look wild and gloomy. Their body hair is exuberant and there are more females than males. It is common for several females to work with one male. He's indeed the reincarnation of a grand cultivator. How rare, how rare. Everyone's hearts trembled. They had long felt that Kong Techu's divine powers and dharma formulations were far more powerful than those of the Ruins Emperor and the locals of the deity ground. Is that true? There are so many females and so few males. That's great. The Fu brothers immediately went to Jiang Tian. One of them massaged his shoulders and the other massaged his legs. They said with a flattering smile, Senior, do you know the way to the central galaxy? Is it possible for you to act as a matchmaker for us? I want the ones with sharp fangs and wild body hair. The betrothal gifts and thank you gifts must be generous. We don't lack money. The Ruins of Immortality has a way to the central galaxy. Only the Ruins Emperor should be in control of it. Jiang Tian leisurely said, You and your brother will follow me to the Ruins of Immortality and capture the Ruins Emperor. If you can't go to the central galaxy, will you lack female bats? Senior Tai Chu, you must take us there. We really can't go extinct. Senior Tai Chu, as long as you can matchmake us, you'll be our ancestor in the future. The Fu brothers immediately submitted, patting their chests as they promised passionately. Then Yi Gongming said seriously, Everyone, let's not talk about that. You've seen how powerful Tai Chu is just now. In terms of power, he's much more powerful than us. In terms of achievements, he swept through the 4 worlds of Hai Lan, killed Divine Emperor Hanshi, and severely injured the Golden Crow and the other 2 guards. He cupped his hands and said, The old man suggests that from today onwards, the 7 of us will respect Tai Chu and form the divine army of the heavenly courts. We'll respect him as the Lord of the heavenly courts and call him Heavenly the Arch Tai Chu. We'll listen to his orders and destroy the palace of the Ruins Emperor and kill the old dog. Do you have any objections? Senior, I'm willing. Yichun was the first to react. He trembled and bowed with cupped fists. Emperor Jiangting, we're willing to respect Tai Chu. If he has any orders, we'll follow them. The masters of the other families and the soul formation overlords also knelt and bowed, saying loudly with reverence in their eyes. If one were to say that they still had doubts in their hearts after Jiang Tian had come to the immortal ruins and slaughtered his way through, then Jiang Tian had just fought against a dozen soul formation grand cultivators on his own in the ring-shaped mountain. They were completely convinced by his strength. Jiang Tian still had a slim chance of winning against the overlords of the Ruins of Immortality right then, but at least he was much more powerful than them. Not many of the billions of cultivators in the entire Ruins of Immortality, dozens of planets would be able to defeat Jiang Tian. They were certainly convinced that such a peerless overlord was leading the 7 pirate families. Back then, the Ruins Emperor's palace promised high salaries and endless cultivation resources to appease the 7 pirate families, but they were unruly and ignored it. I never thought that Senior Tai Chu would be able to convince them after a fight. Below the hall, Long Xingnan looked at the great bandits and heroes in the Ruins of Immortality, whose fierce reputation could stop children from crying at night. They all bowed and knelt before Jiang Tian. She felt that she had never seen anything as wonderful as today. The 7 pirate families were equal in strength and they all had their own inheritances. No one was willing to submit to the others. For thousands of years they fought on their own and were like a pile of loose sand. There were powerful overlords in the middle who wanted to unite them, but they didn't succeed. And yet Lord Taichu did it all in one battle. He's really a peerless talent. Ghost Wolf knew the history of the 7 pirates. The more he thought about it, the more he found Zhang Tian to be powerful and extraordinary. He's the master of the heavenly courts and the heavenly the arch. He wants to fight with the Ruins Emperor's palace as an equal. The time of the final battle is not far away. Bai Mushua's heart was pounding and her blood was boiling. She looked at Zhang Tian with mesmerized eyes, wondering how such a strange man could exist in the world. They knew that a shining star was about to rise above the ruins of immortality. It was the most dazzling star under the starry sky, enough to make the Ruins Emperor pale in comparison. Chapter 1559. Brothers. There's no need to kneel. From now on, although our responsibilities will be different, we'll be on equal footing and call each other brothers. Zhang Tian was overjoyed as he raised his hands. He wanted to overturn the Ruins Emperor's palace and defeat the Ruins Emperor alone. As he collected more and more treasures, his cultivation level would become stronger and it would not be impossible for him to reach the mid-stage nascent soul realm. However, it would probably take 8 to 10 years. With the help of the 7 great bandits, it would be completely different. They had killed and plundered for many years and had accumulated a lot of treasures. Some of them were even passed down from the ancient heavenly courts. It would allow Zhang Tian to break through very quickly. They had many people, strongholds, spies and informants all over the ruins of immortality. They had a powerful intelligence agency. In addition, with Bai Mushua's wide news pavilion, they could find the loopholes in the defenses of the ruins of immortality and go straight in to kill the important people. The 7 great bandits had tens of thousands of well-equipped troops. They were scattered in various forbidden lands and dangerous mountains. Although their discipline was extremely poor and they were scattered, they had rich battle experience. If they worked together, they could be called a tiger and wolf army and could carry out a large-scale battle. Even if that was nothing, at least they could destroy the ruins of Immortality Dynasty while Zhang Tian was in seclusion. That way they could interfere with their attention and form a force to restrain them. Zhang Tian would definitely not be ambushed while he was in seclusion. They had to act according to their discretion. This was wartime, so they had to seize every second and keep everything simple. They did not hold any grand ceremony. After the bandits kowtowed to Zhang Tian and swore their loyalty, the new heavenly courts was established. Zhang Tian was the new master of the heavenly courts, known as the Taichu Heavenly the Arch. Heavenly the Arch, there are so many things to do after destroying the ruins of immortality. How should we fight next? Yi Gongming cupped his fists and asked. As soon as these words were spoken, all the bandits present looked at Zhang Tian, unable to take their eyes off him, revealing expressions of anticipation. In fact, that was also the topic that everyone was most concerned about. Although they had been attacking everywhere over the years, killing and plundering, they did not do it in a systematic way. They did it mostly to survive. Zhang Tian thought for a moment and said leisurely, I once searched for the consciousness of Divine Emperor Xianxia and the others. Now, the army of the ruins of immortality's Ruins Emperor's palace, the Academy's disciples, and the various grotto heavens were under the Ruins Emperor's orders to descend to the lower realm. The Highlawn, the fertile lands, the desolate lands, the savage lands and the other second-grade worlds are heavily fortified, with thousands of fortresses and incomparably tight security. At this time, however, the ruins of immortality are at their weakest. Therefore, our strategy should be to enter the ruins of immortality through the gate of heaven influence and start a massacre. Tu Fei rubbed his hands excitedly. You can kidnap a few concubines, queens, princesses, infantas, saintesses and so on to reproduce. Fu Heishui said excitedly. That's not it. Humans were too ugly. It has no hair and is bald. Its face is flat and its teeth are short and thick. It is not clever at all. Fu Huiren said seriously. In the future we'll follow Senior Tai Chu to the central galaxy to find our own kind. We'll keep ourselves chaste for our future wives. How could she be interested in them? We can kidnap a few nobles and ministers. Everyone was talking at once, extremely excited. They were still digging graves, robbing graves, burning, killing and looting. Everyone was very good at it, but it had a completely different strategic significance. Everyone, let's do something big. Let's not be calculative about the gains and losses of a city or pool. We'll only wipe out the enemy's soul formation realm and raise the banner of our new heavenly courts. We'll get more people to follow us and join the war against the Ruins Emperor. Jiang Tian said calmly, we'll kill those loyal to the Ruins Emperor. We specialize in attacking and killing those loyal to the Ruins Emperor, especially the royal family and the nobles. We will scatter the treasures they contain and kill the rich to help the poor. We'll give the middle-of-the-road faction the feeling that they can get a share of the benefits by killing the Ruins Emperor. Gradually, more and more forces will join us in our sabotage operations. Their strength will decrease and eventually, we'll completely isolate the Ruins Emperor's lineage. That's a good idea. Yi Gongming said worriedly. But no matter what, we won't be able to shake the top soul formation realm cultivators of the Ruins Emperor's palace, the Academy and Sky Palace. Of course. Up to now, even if we join forces against the Sword God or Teacher of the Ruins Emperor's palace, we probably don't even have a 30% chance of winning. Jiang Tian said leisurely, but all of this is just a distraction. However, all of this is just a distraction to throw them into disarray. As for me, I'll take the opportunity to find treasures to break through to the nascent soul realm or even stronger. Heavenly the Arch. There are countless water elemental treasures in the water palace in the fallen Immortal Sea region. They should be useful. Green Wurm King immediately took out a jade slip. Light spewed out as a screen condensed in the air. Many patterns and words flickered, displaying the many water elemental treasures in the water palace's treasury for Jiang Tian to see. The grade isn't bad and they're considered treasures. But to me they're still lacking. They're not divine or immortal materials. Jiang Tian checked carefully and finally smiled. These can only be used as supplementary materials. But just these alone can't help my water elemental golden core form the nascent soul. Green Wurm King looked disappointed, but he understood. Jiang Tian's breakthrough required the best cultivation materials. That was why Jiang Tian's strength was so powerful and heaven-defying. He was only at the golden core and nascent soul realm, but he could cross the chasm and fight soul formation realm cultivators, shocking the world. Bai Wuxia stepped forward and said, I once deduced that there should be a water elemental treasure in the Water Moon Grotto Heaven from the ancient scrolls. However, we still don't know the exact reason based on the clues we have left behind. She had read many ancient books and found out the truth from bamboo slips, wooden slips and even oracle bone inscriptions. There was a water elemental dharma treasure from ancient times. Its origin was mysterious, but it was very powerful. It didn't have the power of a grand cultivator, but it was more powerful than a Dao artifact. It had shone during the age of Dao damage and killed many soul formation grand cultivators and ancient saints. Later, it fell into the hands of the Water Moon Grotto Heaven. Every time it was activated, it required the combined power of thousands of cultivators in the Grotto Heaven and it rarely showed up. But 4,000 years ago the Emperor of the Ruins tried to destroy the Water Moon Grotto Heaven, but they were forced to retreat. That was when it showed up. It's okay. There are plenty of heavenly treasures in the ruins of deity. We should be able to find what I need as we fight. Jiang Tian comforted. The Water Moon Grotto Heaven? When we reach the ruins of deity, we'll destroy them and look for it. If the people in the ruins of deity who didn't know the truth heard it, they would definitely scold Jiang Tian for being arrogant. The Water Moon Grotto Heaven was one of the 6 Grotto Heavens, along with the Tianmong Grotto Heaven. It had several soul formation cultivators. This heavenly grotto was already famous during the era of Dao damage. It had stood tall for tens of thousands of years without collapsing and even now it was still flourishing. Geniuses came out in large numbers and nascent soul cultivators were as common as the rain. Its status and strength were above the ruins of deity, second only to the Academy, Sky Palace and the Emperor of the Ruins. It was a forbidden existence that was respected by the world. But Jiang Tian wanted to destroy it. It was the biggest joke in the world. It was unbelievable. But everyone knew that Jiang Tian's words were equivalent to announcing the destruction of the Water Moon Grotto Heaven. Jiang Tian and the Heavenly Court's Recovery Divine Army formed by the 7 bandits could easily destroy the Water Moon Grotto Heaven. Jiang Tian was very confident about his next move. He said leisurely, once I reach the nascent soul level I think I can defeat all soul formation cultivators. I'm not afraid of the Sword God or the Teacher. Good. We're relieved to hear that. Heavenly Emperor, let's not delay. Let's go. Yi Gongming laughed heartily. Chapter 1560. Haha, the soul formation cultivators of the ruins of deity have been showing off for so long. It's time to teach them a lesson. The Green Dragon King snickered. I, the King of Explosions, will turn the ruins of deity upside down. Wherever I go, not even a blade of grass will grow. Tu Fei looked like a bandit and was extremely destructive. Haha, I'm going to dig up the graves of the ruins emperor and dance on them. Ying Long said excitedly. Everyone was rubbing their fists, eager to fight. Then Jiang Tian asked some questions and made some arrangements. Everyone worked together and came up with a few battle plans. After that, Jiang Tian didn't take action right away. Instead, he practiced with the semi-god realm warriors of the 7 great bandits. He modified his cultivation arts and made up for the flaws. He tried his best to make his cultivation arts fit the great Tao of this world. He even tried his best to surpass this world, fight against nature and seize the fortune of the universe. There were many soul formation cultivators in the ruins of deity. Even though many of them had gone to the lower worlds and were guarding the second-level worlds, they still couldn't be underestimated. They had to be prepared. Under Jiang Tian's guidance, everyone felt as if they were listening to a deity art. They were immediately enlightened and their previous blockages were cleared. Bang bang bang. In a ring-shaped mountain strengthened by countless runes and talisman arrays, Jiang Tian flashed and jumped as if he were flying. He fought with them and unleashed his divine powers, Dharma laws and the Grand Tao. It was almost a real battle and he didn't hold back. In just a few days, the strength of the great bandit magnates rose steadily. It was as if there was no end to it. Everyone had great gains and comprehensions. There was a desolate base in that dimension called Planet Xian where countless ancient books were stored. Apart from cultivation arts, there were also records of the war during the Age of Tao damage and even the wandering process in the deity ground. That heavy crystal gate had only been opened a few times in thousands of years. It was covered in dust and the talisman arrays were about to be worn out. At the moment, the gate was open by Wuxia. There were bamboo slips, jade books, golden cauldron inscriptions and oracle inscriptions. There were even knots to record things. Some were stained with blood, some were covered with holes and some were cracked and dim because of time. They had only been preserved after so many twists and turns. These documents were incomparably ancient. They had a history of tens of thousands of years. After experiencing the passage of time, they were covered in dust and were on the verge of rotting and collapsing. In addition, there were some that had been dug up by the gravedigger Ying clan. They came from the imperial tombs of the ruins of Immortality Imperial Court, and were not considered magical treasures. They couldn't be used in battle, so they were also thrown here. These ancient documents were not of much use to the great Ko family. They were all old and rough men. Most of them had the bloodline of big demons. Their intelligence was slightly lower. They were good at murder, arson, kidnapping, extortion and robbing, but they were not interested in reading books, studying and calculating. If it weren't for the fact that there were records of their ancestors in the ancient scrolls, they would have burned it to the ground long ago. But to Bai Wuxia it was incomparably precious. This was first-hand historical data and had the highest credibility. It was like a huge treasure trove. Ancient forbidden grounds, hidden secrets, lost Dharma treasure resources, and even the various cultivation techniques of the ruins emperor's lineage were all listed within. If she studied it thoroughly, the worlds of the ruins of immortality would be almost transparent in Bai Wuxia's eyes. Taking advantage of the time when Jiang Tian and the others were preparing, Bai Wuxia immersed herself in it all day. She didn't leave the house at all. She flipped through the ancient books and imprinted the documents with jade slips. She was beautiful and pure. Her white clothes were stained with dust and her nose was stained with dust. She was like a kitten that had crawled into the stove, but she didn't know it. Her face was calm like a beautiful jade carving. Her eyebrows were knitted and relaxed and her clear eyes were very calm. She was carefully experiencing and comprehending. Her slender fingers were constantly making calculations. She was making mysterious deductions with the art of decimation that Jiang Tian had taught her. She wanted to see through all the fog of history and see the truth of the ruins of immortality. She wanted to become the advisor of Jiang Tian's operation. An unknown amount of time passed. Bai Wuxia finally finished reading the last bamboo scroll and imprinted it into her portable jade slip for future use. She stretched her tired body and rubbed her hot temples. Then she pushed open the crystal gate and walked out. She immediately saw a shocking scene. Under the sparse stars and the pitch-black sky, a gigantic gate of heaven influence flickered with spatial fluctuations as it floated in the air. It was covered with talisman arrays and Daoist patterns that flickered with auspicious colors and brilliance. Everyone's aura was several times or even 10 times stronger than before. They all stood under the gate of sky influence. Although they were silent, their eyes were full of anticipation and excitement. Are they going to rush to the ruins of immortality and attack the root of the problem? Wuxia suddenly felt excited, but she was also a little worried. During this time she only cared about studying the documents and didn't improve her strength. She was worried that Zhang Tian would treat her as a burden and leave her here or send her back to Penglai. Wuxia, it's time to go. We're waiting for you, Zhang Tian said leisurely. He was wearing a black outfit and his long hair was draped over his shoulders. His divine body was glittering like a god. She felt that Zhang Tian's strength seemed to have improved a lot. That was probably the result of his practice with the soul formation cultivators. Heaven Emperor, I'm sorry to keep you waiting. Wuxia blushed. She suppressed the excitement in her heart, bowed deeply and walked to the end of the line. We're going to attack the soul formation cultivators of the ruins of immortality. Zhang Tian glanced at everyone and said coldly, this is a battle of attrition. It's also a decapitation operation and a show of strength. Our ultimate goal is to eliminate the soul formation cultivators who are following the Emperor of the Ruins. I want everyone to work closely and make sure there are no casualties. Do you understand? Yes. The bandits, Ghost Wolf, Long Xingnan, and Wuxia all felt their blood boiling. They roared and howled in anger. Their chi soared up to the sky as they followed Zhang Tian into the Gate of Sky bearing. Destination Danzhou, Tianyuan Province, Ruins of Immortality, the stronghold of the Demon Corpse Mountain. Yi Gongming was old and weak. He was too stubborn and couldn't be changed. His strength didn't increase and he had to stay in the Star Haiyuan dimension, so he didn't participate in this operation. Sword Master Outyin and Zhang Qinyang didn't have a chance to go either. They were too weak and would only be a burden. After all, it was a top battle and the goal was to kill the soul formation cultivators. They had already returned to the Penglai world through the Gate of Sky influence and were ordered to build an army of cultivators to restrain the army of the ruins of immortality. Yi Gongming controlled the Gate of Sky influence from the ancient heavenly court to adjust the coordinates on the array and said seriously, congratulations to the Taichu Heaven Emperor and fellow cultivators. Go straight to the heart of the ruins of immortality and take revenge for the ancient sages of the deity ground. He respectfully bowed to Zhang Tian and cupped his fists, his face full of hope. Congratulations to the Taichu Heaven Emperor and fellow cultivators. Go straight to the heart of the ruins of immortality and take revenge for the ancient sages of the deity ground. Many soldiers wearing cold armor and all of them were at the Foundation establishment level. They knelt down and said solemnly, Lord, you're the one who's going to die. We won't let you down. Zhang Tian bowed back. Boom. As Yi Gongming activated the Gate of Sky influence, the dimension immediately shook and light flashed. The Gate of Sky influence released endless light, as if it were twisting time and space. In the next moment, the Gate of Heaven influence was like a brilliant star, flying toward the dimensional barrier in a seemingly slow but actually fast manner. When it fused with the dimensional barrier, countless space talisman arrays and Tao patterns shone brightly like the sun in the sky, illuminating the mountains and rivers. Many ring-shaped mountains and bases reflected the dazzling white light. Then the door disappeared in a flash. It disappeared together with the gate. Planet Xian, this small world, regained its tranquility as if this world had never existed.